Okay, is it good? Okay, we watch it or not?
Watch out and take care.
It's good, okay.
On a late-night train ride, a man wakes up alone, realizing that he might have missed his stop. He walks to the other section of the train, but he slips into a pool of blood, leaving him drenched and afraid. From the other section, he hears thumping noises, as if someone is being butchered, so he takes a look and sees exactly what he thinks. In the busy streets of New York, Leon Kaufman photographs the city and practices it as his profession. He lives with his girlfriend, Maya Jones, in an apartment they rent together. While they spend time together, Maya realizes that Leon's work is causing too much strain and stress on him. She figures out that it would make him happy to call his boss behind his back, and let him introduce him to a famous gallery owner named Susan Hoff. The next day, Leon goes to her office with his boss, Jurgis, and officially meets her. Leon explains to Susan that his style captures the unique and gritty shots of the city, but it does not leave a big impression on her. Instead, she criticizes his shots, saying that he is not taking enough risks, and that his shots lack life. Emboldened by her remarks, Leon has a hard time sleeping that night, so he heads outside to seek inspiration for his work. He heads into the city subway system during that night, where he sees the uncrowded place. Just as he is about to go downstairs, he witnesses an impending assault, where 3 men are harassing a woman, and photographs the scene. He calls their attention, making one of the men start to approach him, and again, he starts taking pictures of the man's menacing face. He points at the security camera to avoid a fight, and the group lets go of the girl before leaving. In a sigh of relief, the woman thanks Leon, even kissing him before she boards the train. By the door, a built-in well-dressed man holds the door. After overcoming a stressful night, she happily plays music when the man approaches her from behind and hits her head with a meat hammer, causing her to die instantly. The following day, Leon visits the local restaurant where he is a regular customer. As a vegan, he always asks the cook to fry some tofu that he brings with him whenever he visits, and the cook hesitantly agrees after making fun of him. Leon reads the newspaper that day and discovers that the woman he saved, Erika Sakaki, is reported missing shortly after she rode the train. Concerned by her whereabouts, he feels a sense of responsibility for handing the photograph of her harassers to the police immediately. However, the one in charge, Detective Lynn Hadley, does not seem convinced about his theory and even thinks that Leon was stalking her and is the one behind her disappearance. Later that day, Leon meets with Susan again to submit his photo entries. Her expression is nothing short of amazed. The images have gained her respect for Leon as a photographer, and she asks him to submit 2 more powerful pictures to be part of her group show in the following week. For the first time in his career, he feels seen and noticed by the higher-ups. That night, along with Maya and Jurgis, they grab drinks to celebrate. However, the celebration ends abruptly as Leon decides to head to the subway again to take more pictures. 3 passengers wait for their next stop inside the train, but the train takes another route, making them miss their stop. From the convex mirror, one of them sees the same man who killed the missing woman stand up and come toward them. The woman alarms them about the man, but they pay her no mind and continue to converse. Suddenly, the man smashes his head with a meat hammer, causing his eyeballs to fall out and result in his instantaneous death. The killer's identity is now revealed, who comes by the name Mahogany. He targets the next victim by using a hook to stab him, even lifting him into the air. The woman tries to run away, but slips in the puddle of blood on the floor as Mahogany walks toward her in a sinister way. The man from behind tries to stop him by grabbing his leg, but Mahogany mercilessly hits him with the meat hammer. The last remaining passenger suffers the same fate as her friends and gets beaten with the hammer, resulting in decapitation. Waiting to take the perfect shot, Leon waits outside the station for passersby who look interesting. Mahogany comes up the escalator looking extremely intimidating, so Leon takes a photo of him and follows him around. As Mahogany takes a turn, he senses that he is being followed, so he stops just as Leon takes the turn as well. He gets a little frightened seeing Mahogany stand still, waiting for him to pass by. As he gets closer, Mahogany grabs him, and he sees a ring adorned with 8 stars. He nervously explains that he simply wants a picture of him, and Mahogany, fortunately, lets him go. While printing and examining his photos, Leon notices the same ring he saw on Mahogany holding the door for Erika the night she disappeared. This gives him the suspicion that Mahogany is behind the killings of late-night passengers, a myth circulating the city. From then on, Leon devotes himself to investigating Mahogany. He follows him around the city and finds out that he is a butcher. The intrigued Leon waits for him to get off work and follows him to the subway station that night. Oddly, Mahogany is observant and vigilant of his surroundings. He waits for the station to be unpacked, spending hours sitting down, waiting for a possible prey while Leon is busy taking pictures of his new subject. Finally, the train that Mahogany has patiently waited for arrives, but before Leon could enter the same train, a police officer stops him to check his camera. A built man enters the train and tries to make fun of Mahogany before realizing that the train is en route to another railway, missing his stop. Mahogany attacks him, knocking the man at once, but he stops and drops the meat hammer after coughing blood. Little does he know, the man has a knife and gets up to attempt to stab Mahogany, but the killer manages to dodge every attack. The two of them start punching each other, making the train driver, Mahogany's accomplice, alarmed by the situation. He comes to the rescue and shoots the man directly in the head before saying that he is disappointed at Mahogany. Meanwhile, Leon surprises Maya in the restaurant where she works with a pre-engagement ring. He is still saving enough money for her to receive a proper engagement ring, and the two happily share the precious moment. That night, Leon dreams of being on the midnight train, butchering numerous victims. He wakes up from his horrible nightmare and sees himself trapped in the obsession of knowing more about the butcher. Mahogany, who suffers from a skin disease, stands in front of a mirror and uses a scalpel to remove the excess skin that is getting worse over time. Weirdly, he preserves the extracted skin and stores it in his medicine cabinet. At home, Maya notices the man consistently in the pictures that Leon takes. He explains that he feels the need to follow the butcher because he may be the suspect in a gruesome crime, but Maya reminds him of the photos that he has to submit to Susan for the show. With his interest completely shifted, Leon goes into further research about the butcher. The following day, he comes to Mahogany's workplace and pretends to be a butcher himself, just to get a glimpse of him and hopefully more evidence. As a vegan, he finds the place very uncomfortable, but he continues to take pictures anyway. Unfortunately, Mahogany spots him secretly taking pictures, so he runs away to avoid confrontation from the menacing man. In the room where animal carcasses are hung, Leon sees him holding a meat hook in hopes of getting a hold of him. He holds himself up with the animal carcass so Mahogany would not see him, but as he goes down, the scary butcher chases him, but he safely escapes. The disoriented Leon meets up with Jurgis at the restaurant, who is having a big plate of steak at the moment. Leon seems to crave meat that day, so he grabs a piece of the steak and eats it, leaving the cook and Jurgis shocked by his behavior. Later that day, he gathers newspaper articles related to midnight train murders, filling the whole apartment with documents. Maya arrives home to Leon acting frantically and bombarding her with information about the disappearances of people, a scheme fueled by the butcher. Annoyed by his obsession, Maya begs him to stop shooting at night and calls his investigation a whole conspiracy theory. To clear his mind, Maya hands him his camera to take portraits of her, but he only sees visions of the midnight train and the butcher, unable to click the capture button. Leon makes it up to her and apologizes to Maya for being paranoid about the butcher. Still, out of nowhere, Leon sees Mahogany's reflection, which is just outside the restaurant, seemingly taunting him. Instantly, it wakes up Leon's obsession once more, so he makes his way to the subway station, boards the train, and is ready to take more photos of the butcher. During the ride, Leon sets his eyes on Mahogany, who is in another section of the train. Some passengers board the last stop, who end up being killed with a meat hammer. Leon witnesses the bloodbath and instantly confirms his theories of Mahogany being a serial killer. He takes up all his courage to stand up and take the pictures while the butcher is busy cleaning up the scene. Horrifyingly, he sees Mahogany extract the victim's teeth, nails, and hair before hanging them upside down. Mahogany notices Leon and smirks at him, causing the photographer to run along the aisle. As he reaches the end of the train, Mahogany smashes his head against the window, knocking him down. Once he regains consciousness, he finds himself inside the slaughterhouse, still alive. He comes home and ignores Maya, who is deeply concerned about him. Inside the bathroom, he discovers strange markings on his chest, which Maya sees shortly after. Leon reveals Mahogany's scheme to her, but with the lack of evidence since his camera is taken away from him, he is sure that the police will not buy his story. Maya gets alarmed by his behavior, but she believes him enough to seek the photos he took. Along with Jurgis, she plans on retrieving Leon's camera, so they head to Mahogany's apartment. After breaking in, Maya and Jurgis examine the apartment separately. He scours through his tools while Maya enters the bathroom, where Mahogany preserves his extracted skin. Unknown to them, the butcher returns to his apartment and captures Jurgis after finding Leon's camera hidden in the closet. As Maya makes her way out of the bathroom, she sees Mahogany's bag and timetables that record more than 100 years of murders on the train. She runs to safety after seeing Mahogany's shoulder from the closet. Knowing that Jurgis has suffered an untimely tragedy, she reports the disappearance of Jurgis, but Detective Hadley is still skeptical of her claims. According to her, she sent an investigation team to the apartment, but they didn't find anything. When Detective Hadley presses Maya to give back the timetables, she demands answers, but the officer remains unhelpful. In the gallery, Leon attends the event, where he is introduced to clients who find his work exceptional. However, Leon is too stressed to maintain a conversation with anyone, so he walks around the gallery until he stops by one of his photographs with Mahogany in it. He observes it intently until Susan asks what is wrong. Before walking away, he tells her, "I have a train to catch." Meanwhile, Maya takes a gun hidden in the restaurant and finds Detective Hadley outside, who finally gives her the whereabouts of Jurgis on the train. While she boards the train, Leon gathers several weapons from the slaughterhouse, now ready to combat Mahogany in full butcher gear. On the train, Maya realizes that the train took another direction, so she stands up bravely and makes her way along the aisle, where Leon sees her. Afraid for her life, he chases the train and manages to climb from it. Mahogany has just completed his nightly massacre, and Maya sees Jurgis hanging from a meat hook, her screams alerting the sinister Mahogany. She tries to shoot him but misses every shot, so she resorts to running back to the other end of the train. However, Mahogany throws his meat hammer and hits her to face and fight between the swinging bodies that are ripped, thrown, and used for defense. Their brawl continues climatically as the two recklessly throw themselves against each other. Yorgos, hanging from a meat hook, dies after being gutted in Mahogany's attempt to hold on. Finally, Leon throws Mahogany out of the train, but not long before it hits its final stop. Maya approaches Leon, slightly relieved that they both survived. The train lights go out at the final destination, and the driver calmly informs them to step away from the meat. They find out the purpose of the abandoned station, as reptilian creatures enter the train and start consuming the bodies of the murdered passengers.
What?
Both of them step down and enter an underground cavern, covered with skulls and decomposing bodies. The battered Mahogany returns from beneath the train with his eyes transformed and fights in a death brawl with Leon, who finishes him at last by impaling the butcher's skull on a blade. Mahogany demonically grins in his dying breath, pronouncing the single word welcome. The train driver picks up Leon after attempting to attack him, rips out his tongue, and eats it. He continues to tell Leon that the carnivorous creatures had lived underground long before the subway existed, and Mahogany's job is to feed them every night to keep them from civilization and attacking train riders during the day. He then approaches the unconscious Maya, who lies on a pile of bones. Brutally, he lets Leon watch as he cuts her chest open to extract her heart before handing it to Leon, now that he must take the dead butcher's place. The following day, a new butcher is up for the job and wears the same ring with the group symbol. He meets Detective Hadley, who hands the train timetables, revealing that she is part of the secret society. The new killer makes his way onto the midnight train, looking for a new victim, and reveals himself as none other than Leon. Subscribe to watch more videos like this.
What the fuck did I just watch? What a weird, dumb, unneeded plot twist. What? I just wish that they built the killer character into the plot. The problem is that they sort of had to hide the plot twist that, like, it doesn't even make sense even when you know the twist. It's like, okay, why? Like, it doesn't fit the character or whatever. It's just out of the blue.
Hey, have you seen the new Barely Sociable video? It's a good outlook on how the music industry has mob ties and its dark secrets. It's a very interesting
American man and
video,
former
and I
Delta
think you'll
Force
like
operator.
it. You should check it out. xQcL link.
How can a movie be toes? Guys, because there's titties and ass booty cracks.
Stephen Arthur Younger, more recently known as Yusuf, is recording a videotape. He stops and starts again several times before fully committing to his final draft. Tuesday, at the LA FBI field office, a team is sifting through data that has been collected on suspicious people. When prompted by Brody, a team member responds that the best he has is that a flight school called about an Arab-sounding man wanting to take flying lessons. Brody is unimpressed with the lack of results. An agent comes to Brody and explains that he went over the files they received from the CIA and found something interesting. A man named Henry. Apparently everything about Henry is classified, but he found it interesting that his wife is Bosnian and that she was involved in questionable activities. In the Humphreys household, both Henry and his wife are extremely cautious, having cameras installed all over the house. All news outlets are reporting on Yusuf allegedly shooting a police officer and kidnapping 2 children. The FBI had not been briefed on Yusuf beforehand, and only now find it out. Brody mentions that she recognizes Yusuf. He is listed on their pin board as a suspect they are investigating. Brody demands that his file be brought out. Yusuf has no record of being extremist. He served in the US Army, but his military file is classified. Brody's superior, Jack, arrives and orders that every suspect be brought in and questioned. He needs every agent to work on Yusuf's case. Brody wonders what's going on and says they don't have enough personnel to do it. Jack offers her as much manpower as she needs and doesn't reveal any more details. The FBI turns up at the Humphreys household. Henry quickly calls his acquaintance at DIA, Charles, and tells him about the FBI at his doorstep, urging Charles to relocate him immediately before hanging up and taking a gun for protection. Charles calls Brody on her personal number and tells her to withdraw her agents immediately. The CIA file about Henry was accidentally leaked to the FBI, and that he is armed and dangerous. They try to contact the 2 agents, but there is no response. Brody sends another team to investigate. They cautiously approach the house, and at the doorstep Henry tries to resolve the situation peacefully after seeing the FBI badge. The 2 agents from earlier have been captured and tied up. They take Henry in for questioning. Henry acts smug and calls them idiots who have no idea what they are doing. When asked for his real name, Henry says they can call him H. Then Charles and Jack enter the room and then break off the questioning. H is under protection and the FBI screwed up. Jack asks Brody for her help on a classified mission and she agrees. Wednesday. Agents from the FBI are summoned to an abandoned facility that has been turned into a black site under military command. General Paulson receives them. He is in command. Charles and H are also present. H jokes about being an independent contractor. Jack shows Yusuf's complete tape where he threatens to detonate 3 nuclear blasts in various US cities if his demands are not met. The bombs are set to explode in 2 days, on Friday. Paulson says that Yusuf worked as a nuclear specialist in Iraq and the threat is 100% real. He has not yet made his demands clear yet. Finally, they reveal that they have already had Yusuf in custody for 24 hours. As they are taken to Yusuf to see him in person, Paulson explains that he was caught in a shopping mall, suspecting that Yusuf wanted to get caught. He is tortured with tactics such as cold water, cold air conditioning, sleep deprivation and more. However, H, who is a special interrogator, thinks this is completely useless. His first attempt to prove his point is to take a large object and repeatedly strike Yusuf's interrogator. He is forcibly removed from the chamber and taken into custody himself. Brody comes in and plays good cop, turning off the air conditioning and drying Yusuf off. She asks him to give her information to act on, but he just says it's too early after checking the time on her watch. Paulson gets Brody out of the chamber. She confronts Jack that all of this is illegal and probably ineffective, but they have been ordered to assist the military and must follow it. Brody asks H about the little show in the chamber. He says military tactics will not work on Yusuf because he's an ex-soldier trained to withstand this kind of interrogation. Charles and Paulson come in and ask H for his help with the interrogation, but he will take turns with others. H disagrees and prefers to work alone with a partner of his choice. Paulson mentions that H isn't the one in charge. "You will treat me with respect," says H. He chooses Brody as his partner. Paulson does not see it that way, but the top official comes in and says,
"Yo, nobody gives a fuck about your dude, propaganda, haha, guys, I'm so edgy, bro, I'm so woke, guys, don't you see, guys, this movie? It's just propaganda, bro. Guys, you see, guys, I know this because I'm awake, I know this, guys, because it's shut up, bitch, we're watching a movie, man."
To give H what he wants. H orders all personnel to leave. He gets his equipment and asks Charlie to call his wife, because although it's top secret, he only eats her food. With the opportunity, H quickly shows what he can do. He asks Yusuf where the 3 bombs are, but after receiving no answer, he emotionlessly chops off one of Yusuf's fingers with a fire axe. Horrified, the military and Brody attempt to put a stop to the measures, but the top official makes it clear that the potentially catastrophic consequences require these extreme measures. H continues the interrogation. They put a plastic bag over Yusuf's head and H cuts a small opening in it so that Yusuf can barely breathe. He takes a knife and says he is his worst nightmare as he begins to cut off his body parts. They try to contact Paulson, but he just tells them to keep going. Brody does not want to accept this illegal torture and leaves the room. She tries once again to talk some sense into Jack, telling him that it's unconstitutional, but there will not be a constitution if the bombs go off. Brody composes herself in the bathroom and H comes in to take a leak. She takes the opportunity to express her
"This stuff happens, Mr. Cow." Okay, and you know what, dude? It's a fucking movie. I'm watching a movie. Stop thinking 3 steps ahead with your fucking political dog shit brain, fake woke dog shit Twitter fucking cucklord blue-haired cuck piece of shit. Watch the fucking images and shut up.
Dissatisfaction with his methods, saying that physical pain does not work. H offers to work together and take turns. She will ask questions and he will torture. Brody goes into the chamber and lets Yusuf rest. She plays the good cop, but after telling him that H will not stop, he says that he was prepared for it, which means that Yusuf expected to be tortured. Brody then tries to use his family against him, his wife and children. This does not work as he says they have 2 days to agree to the demands he has not made yet. Yusuf says that he will state his demands tomorrow. H returns to playing the bad cop. At night he does not let Yusuf sleep a wink, for he tells him that he will break him. Every man has something he lies to himself about. Yusuf just grins and H loses his temper. Thursday. H begins using electric shocks. His wife arrives at the facility at his request and he asks Brody to watch Yusuf. When Yusuf falls asleep, they use the electric shock on him, but the machine malfunctions and does not shut off. They manage to turn it off just in time. Meanwhile, H is enjoying his time with his children and wife. He confirms to Brody that he caused the machine to malfunction so they can save Yusuf and he gets to feel false hope. Meanwhile, the FBI continues its investigation into where the bombs may have been placed. They are also trying to find Yusuf's family and are hot on their heels. They suspect that one bomb is definitely in LA. Yusuf looks broken as his neck spasms with pain. H asks Brody to massage Yusuf's back while he turns up some soothing music and tells a story in a calm voice about his wife and what she did in Bosnia. That his children were born prematurely, and when he asks about Yusuf's children, he breaks down. H takes this as his cue to continue his torture. Yusuf begs him to stop and shouts that he will talk. Only now does Yusuf make his demands. He wants the President of the United States to announce an end to support for puppet governments and dictatorships in Islamic nations and the withdrawal of American troops from all Islamic countries. The group immediately dismisses the possibility of his demands being met, citing the US government's declared policy of never negotiating with terrorists. But H says they should take the deal because it's just an announcement, they do not have to follow it through. They have less than 24 hours before detonation. Top official tells H to continue with his methods. Brody tries to get through to Yusuf, but he will not give up anything until his conditions are met. H continues with his torture. The FBI obtained the footage from the mall. Yusuf stood there for 23 minutes waiting to be captured, knowing he would be tortured. Paulson argues that all of this might be a hoax and that there are no real bombs. Brody goes into the chamber and takes over H. She accuses Yusuf of faking the threat of explosion in order to make a statement about the moral character of the US as a nation. He finally breaks down and admits that there were never any bombs planted. He never had nuclear material, the bombs are simply empty shells. To prove this, he whispers an address to Brody. Teams of troops are sent out to scout it out. Brody does not believe that it is the hoax that Yusuf claims, because he had previously said that something would happen today. They find a room that matches the scene from the videotape, and they find evidence on the roof. A soldier removes a picture of Yusuf from an electrical switch, triggering a massive C4 explosion in a nearby shopping mall that can be seen from the building they are in. Enraged at the senseless lives that were lost, Brody returns to Yusuf, threatens him with a scalpel, and demands to know where the bombs are. Yusuf is rested and is undaunted. He justifies the deaths at the mall by saying that Americans kill that many people every day. Yusuf says he is not a coward, that he allowed himself to be captured so he could meet his oppressors face to face. Friday. Information comes in that Yusuf got a parking ticket in Dallas. The address was traced to a warehouse where they found a bomb. It appears to be a real nuclear bomb, set to detonate at noon today, which is in 3 hours. It is almost impossible to find the other two in time. They continue to torture Yusuf, but H looks defeated and says he may not crack. H gets back into the chamber and takes off the blindfold from Yusuf. He cracks a smile and winks at him. Meanwhile, the FBI has found Yusuf's wife. She states that she will not say a word until she is able to see her children. Brody threatens her with time in prison if she does not comply. H proposes to use Yusuf's wife against him and brings her before her husband. Her simply speaking to Yusuf is not working, so H threatens to hurt her in front of him. Brody stops him and orders the soldiers to take Yusuf's wife out of the room and away from H. Out of desperation, H slits her throat and she dies in front of Yusuf. H is told that in each city government officials and their families are being evacuated to nuclear shelters. Time is running out and he must finish what he has started. H comes to Yusuf and tells him that he will die today, that there are no limits, that he has been authorized to do everything in his power to obtain information. H steps outside to take a drink of water and Brody tells him that there is no more time and to do everything he can. At that moment, H tells the soldiers to go get Yusuf's 2 children. Outside of Yusuf's hearing, he assures everyone that he will not harm the children. Brody lets H know that if he does anything to them, she will personally see to his death. Yusuf's children are brought in. H makes it clear to Yusuf that he will hurt them if the locations of the bombs are not revealed. Yusuf finally gives in and gives 3 addresses, one in New York, one in Los Angeles, and one in Dallas. However, H does not stop what he's doing. He says that there must be more, which Yusuf is concealing. H asks Yusuf if there is a 4th bomb. Yusuf denies that there is. The others, desperate to free the children from H, break into the chamber and take H out by force. H points out the amount of missing nuclear material that Yusuf potentially had at his disposal and insists that Yusuf has not admitted to the 4th bomb that he believes exists. He points out that everything Yusuf has done so far has been methodically planned out. The top official in charge demands that the children be brought back for further interrogation. H questions this and wonders if he will be able to do what needs to be done. He is given permission. H demands that Brody bring the children back in because her breaking her decency will give him the moral approval that he needs to do the worst thing possible. When Brody refuses to retrieve the children for H, he unstraps Yusuf, sarcastically setting him free. The top official draws his pistol and aims it at H to force him into doing what is demanded of him. Yusuf grabs the top official's gun. He asks Brody to take care of his children and kills himself. Brody walks out of the building with Yusuf's children. The FBI successfully find the locations of the 3 bombs and manage to defuse them just in time. Unfortunately, H was right, there is a 4th bomb and Brody's decency has just cost them millions of lives. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this.
What? Brody? Hello? What the fuck is Brody doing?
Why do you think movies are
Welcome
made?
to MovieCat.
To entertain the public and shape perception. L take. Unsubbed after 3 years of watching. Your content going downhill anyways.
Okay, so you're unsubscribing because you're upset that I call the movie entertainment and you said the movie is entertainment and perception shaping. You know what, dude? You know, dude? You're right. My perception is that you're a dumb fuck and I could not give a fuck. I could not give no fucks about you leaving it. You wanna know what, dude? Motherfucker, let me tell you something that is gone and you're never going to see again. Ready for this? Ready for this? The 36 times $5 that you gave to the stream, you fucking cuck. Fuck you, man. I'm gonna buy a fucking steak tonight, motherfucker. On your dime, pussy. I'm gonna get a fucking steak with some mushroom sauce and some mashed potatoes on your dime. Fuck you. Okay, now we can move on from that. Holy shit, what a dumb fuck. Okay. How about one more? Doubling down? Yeah, of course. Why, you think I'm gonna cave in and start changing what I say and how I act because one sub? I don't give a fuck about it.
Fringe Dono Omega Lal.
The guy didn't even donate his username. You would think if he was a 31 sub that he would have a username. He donated some dog shit. He's not even a sub. He's probably some random guy.
5-child entertainer, that's chump change to me. Any dessert?
That's chump change. That's chump change to you? Jesus Christ. What do you think that is to me then? That's literally the fucking dust that's stuck in between the ceiling lamp, you fucking moron. Are you okay, dude? Where's all this guy? That's literally the fucking lint in my fucking ass crack. Are you okay? Hey, give me a good one.
Welcome back to Movie Recaps. Today I will show you a thriller, sci-fi film from 2007, titled Sunshine. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. It's the year 2057, and mankind is facing extinction because the sun is dying. 8 astronauts are chosen to board the spaceship Icarus I and carry a colossal stellar bomb with the mass equivalent of Manhattan Island with the intent of jump-starting the sun, but the spaceship gets lost before they can reach the star.
He doesn't exist. Guys, Yo, don't know. Don't know, but this time with your Twitch username, so we can see if you're actually a long one sub. Surely, since you know so much about shaming perception, right? And knowing the truth, surely you wouldn't be lying about that, right? Right? Go ahead, show us, man. Show us the kind of chatter you are, man.
Since they lose communication with Earth after a certain point, nobody knows what has happened to them. 7 years later, while Earth is freezing in a solar winter, a new crew of 8 is sent out in the Icarus II to try again. First, it's Searle, the ship's doctor and psychological officer, who has become obsessed with watching the sun. He even asks the Icarus AI to refilter the observation room panel to allow him to see as much brightness as possible without burning himself. This is such an amazing experience for him that over dinner, he recommends doing it to the whole crew: the engineer James Mace, the pilot Cassie, biologist Corazon, the communications officer and second-in-command Harvey, the ship's captain Kaneda, the navigator Trey, and the physicist in charge of the bomb Robert Capa. But none of them are attracted to the idea. Kaneda informs them that the solar wind reading is much higher than they'd anticipated at this distance, and soon they will be entering the dead zone, which means they won't be able to communicate with Earth anymore, so the crew should send home their last messages. Capa records a video for his parents and his sister, telling them they can't contact him back, but they'll know if they've succeeded if the sun comes out by the time they get this message. However, he takes so long in recording this, that there isn't any time left for his crewmates to do the same, and this enrages Mace, who tries to start a fight with him. After the others separate them, Mace is sent to talk to Searle, who tells him he has lost track of time and prescribes him 2 hours in the Earth room, which is a chamber that simulates their home in order to calm them down. Meanwhile, Kaneda continues to watch the old report sent by Pinbacker, the captain of Icarus I. While Corazon assures him her garden is producing plenty of oxygen and that's not the problem the previous crew had, Kaneda is still worried, especially when he sees Pinbacker describe some damage his ship got as beautiful. A distraction is welcome, however, when Cassie discovers they're passing by Mercury, so the whole crew goes to the observation room to watch it. Sometime later, while checking comm systems, Harvey makes an important discovery: a transmission playing the distress signal from the Icarus I, which is reaching them thanks to the ship reaching the dark side of Mercury and the iron content of the planet acting like an antenna. Icarus simulates the first ship's trajectory on the screen and they realize nobody picked up the signal until now because it was hidden in the background light and noise since the Icarus 1 actually managed to get pretty close to the sun. The crew starts discussing if it would be a good idea to adjust their trajectory and make contact with the Icarus 1. Mace doesn't think it is a good idea because the mission is more important and if they don't deliver their payload, everything dies. On the other hand, there may be survivors in the ship, plus extra oxygen and food they can use, and most importantly, an extra bomb that could give them a better chance at reigniting the sun. Since they can't agree if the risk is worth it or not, they leave the decision up to Kappa because he has the physics knowledge to know what is best. After running the math with Icarus, he decides the extra bomb is worth the risk and tells them to fly towards Icarus 1. The ship leaves Mercury's orbit after Trey adjusts their trajectory, but he makes a mistake. He has forgotten to realign the shields that protect the ship from the sun, causing damage to 4 panels which if not repaired could destroy the whole ship and kill the crew. Kaneda and Kappa embark on a spacewalk to make repairs while Cassie guides them, angling the damaged portion of the shield away from the sun and causing the loss of 2 protruding communications towers that have no use right now. However, this also causes the reflected light to destroy the ship's oxygen garden and oxygen reserves to Corazone's dismay, who has to watch how O2 is released to put out the fire. They need to re-angle the shield, but this would kill Kappa and Kaneda, who are still not done with the repairs. Harvey and Cassie want to wait, but Mace reminds them that the priority is to protect the payload and Kaneda agrees with him. So as Icarus uses autopilot to fix the ship's rotation, Kaneda sends Kappa back inside and sacrifices himself to fix the last panel. Moments later, Searle needs to sedate Trey, putting him in a catatonic state, because the guilt is putting him at suicide risk. As the second in command, Harvey becomes the new captain, and he informs the crew that after what happened to the garden, they don't have enough oxygen to get them to their delivery point, let alone survive the journey, so now they have no other choice but to try to make contact with the Icarus 1 and hope they can salvage enough to continue the journey. After everyone else goes to take care of their chores, Mace, Corazon, and Cassie have a chat in private, where Corazon tells them that their current oxygen levels would be enough if they lose 3 people. Afterward, Cassie shares a little talk with Kappa, telling him she is scared of dying, but he admits he is not. Once Icarus 2 finally docks with Icarus 1, Kappa, Searle, Mace, and Harvey go aboard to search the ship. Ignoring the fact lights don't work and the ship is full of dust, which most likely is human skin, they decide to split the group to search more effectively. Harvey finds the garden intact with 7 years of unchecked growth, which delights Corazon, while Mace confirms the second bomb is fully operational, and Searle checks for water and food, finding plenty of both. Mace discovers all systems are fine as well, except he isn't getting anything from the flight computer, and when he digs deeper in the files, a recording with a rambling message from Pinbacker starts playing. His face is burned, and he mentions they've abandoned the mission because they shouldn't defy God. The transmission code is from 6.5 years ago, exactly the time they were supposed to deliver the payload. Mace keeps on searching for an explanation and finds out the mainframe has been sabotaged, so they can't fly the Icarus 1, officially making this detour completely pointless. Meanwhile, Searle enters the observation room and finally finds the crew. All the bodies are sitting in front of the panel, having let the sun burn them to ashes. Suddenly, the 2 ships explosively disconnect, destroying Icarus 1's outer airlock and stranding the 4 men as the Icarus 2 starts to float away from them. They find only one suit they can use, so Mace and Searle agree to give it to Kappa, who has priority because he is the only one that knows how to operate the payload. Harvey protests against this, saying he should be the one with priority because he is the captain, but the others ignore his orders. However, Mace has one more idea that could save the rest of them. He takes insulation material from the walls of the ship to wrap themselves in it. This should be enough for them to resist the cold while jumping from one ship to another. There's only one problem, because the computer isn't working anymore, one of them must stay behind to open the hatch, and Searle accepts to sacrifice himself and be the one to do it. Once Cassie aligns both airlocks, Searle releases the airlock and the other 3 men use the vacuum release for propulsion to jump between ships while holding on to each other. They are forced to let go though, when they accidentally hit the ship on their way out, and only Kappa makes it to the other airlock. Mace manages to hold onto a handrail, and thanks to this Kappa is capable to grab him and drag him inside with him, but Harvey floats away and freezes, dying from asphyxiation. Back in Icarus 1, Searle has accepted his fate, so he goes to the observation room and sits next to the bodies to let the sun burn him while Cassie says her goodbyes through the comms. No. After triple checking the activity file, Mace is sure Icarus didn't disconnect the airlocks, and there wasn't a malfunction either, which means someone did it manually. Since the men were together in Icarus 1 and the women were together in Icarus 2, the only remaining option is Trey. Kappa is skeptical because Trey is so deeply sedated, it is almost impossible for him to move enough to pull such a thing. Corazon also points out that now they have lost 2 breathers, only one more needs to go so they can survive the mission, and Mace accepts to be the one to kill Trey. Kappa thinks this madness is probably what happened to Icarus 1, but he still agrees on doing it, because the future of mankind is more important. Corazon also agrees, but Cassie doesn't, not that it matters much, since it's 3 against 1. Mace leaves the crew behind and enters the infirmary. After grabbing an electric scalpel, Mace checks the bed, but Trey isn't there. He is actually sitting in the Earth room and he's already dead, having cut his own wrists. Mace calls the rest of the crew so they can see what happened, and once they are there, he blames the deaths on Kappa's decision to divert the mission and says the spilled blood should be his. Angry, Kappa tackles him and starts a fight, which doesn't last long because they have trouble breathing since the air is low. While checking on the payload, Kappa makes Icarus run a check on the crew's biometrics and oxygen consumption, and Icarus 1 informs him they are all going to die before delivering the payload because the oxygen is not enough. When Kappa gets confused and says the remaining oxygen should be enough for 4 people, Icarus tells him there is a 5th unknown person aboard, currently standing in the observation room.
What?
Kappa rushes there and finds the viewing panel bright with sunlight, and standing in front of it, an insane and disfigured pinbacker that keeps rambling about God, angels, humanity, and stardust. He was the one that decoupled the airlocks. Suddenly, he attacks Kappa, managing to cut his stomach with one of the electric scalpels before he runs out and asks Icarus to change the panel to full sunlight. This isn't enough to kill him, so he chases after Kappa until he enters the airlock and closes the hatch behind him. Pinbacker takes the chance to lock the door manually to stop Kappa from escaping before going to the coolant tank to remove the panels, which causes Icarus to shut down. Meanwhile, Corazon is staring at her burned garden when she notices a tiny little baby plant among the debris. She intends to tell the rest of the crew about it, but Pinbacker finds her and kills her by stabbing her with the scalpel. Back in the airlock, Kappa puts on the vest from one of the suits in an attempt to stop the bleeding and notices he cannot open the door as the power goes out in the entire ship. Cassie, who had been sleeping, also notices the lack of power and goes out to investigate with a flashlight in hand. When she finds Pinbacker, she runs out of there as fast as possible. In the control room, Mace reactivates the computer with an emergency battery, but Icarus won't answer. He sees Kappa on the security cameras and tells him to use the communicator on the suit helmet, so now Kappa can tell him about Pinbacker and his sabotaging. As soon as he hears this, Mace rushes to the coolant tank and submerges himself in the freezing water to reinstall the panels Pinbacker took out, managing to bring back power right before Pinbacker catches up with Cassie at the Earth room and tries to attack her. Luckily for her, he gets confused by the shadows and grabs Trey instead, so Cassie grabs the scalpel Trey had used and stabs Pinbacker before running out again, hiding in the room with the bomb. As his body slowly freezes to death because his leg is stuck in the coolant tank, Mace manages to contact Kappa to tell him they're in orbit, but the computer is down and he isn't sure he can make it work again, so he will have to separate the payload from the ship and detonate it manually. Mace dies while begging Kappa to finish the mission. Kappa puts on the astronaut suit and uses a torch to make a hole in the door that connects to the hallway, then he unscrews the lid that covers the emergency button and presses it after tying himself up to the wall. This causes the main hatch to be expelled, and the combination of the incoming pressure from outside and the hole on the metal makes the hallway door blow up, giving Kappa back access to the ship. After seeing Mace's frozen body, he goes to the control room and activates the separation procedure, then jumps out of the ship and into the now separated bomb room while Icarus 2 is burned away by the sun. Inside the bomb, he takes off the suit and comes closer to Cassie, who is sitting on the floor with a lost look on her face. He barely gets to say a word to her when Pinbacker ambushes them, grabbing Kappa by the neck and taking him over the edge of the bomb with the intention to drop him into the abyss while talking about the sun as if it was his god. It is then that Cassie snaps out of it and runs to help Kappa. Together they manage to lose his grasp by ripping the skin off one of his arms. The bomb is finally entering the sun now, so after being thrown around a bit by all the shaking, Cassie tells Kappa to finish it. He sees Pinbacker waiting for him by the edge of the bomb but decides to ignore him and concentrate on the mission, so Kappa rushes to the controls and activates the payload. The bomb explodes and Kappa watches how the sun is reignited, even reaching out to it before dying. Back on Earth, Kappa's sister watches his message one more time before taking her kids to watch the sunrise for the first time in years. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.
That's truly moving. Guys, that was
story recap.
Guys, that was moving. I'm holding back all the tears right now. That was really tough. This giant spaceship land on Earth, imminent global war unless learn communicate alien.
Today, I'm going to show a drama.
Ooh, this looks pretty fucking dog shit.
Yo, put that leg down, bro, please.
It's good. I'm not watching that. Okay, I'll give it a try. Ooh, that one looks good. Bah. Sorry, I'm getting chills.
And sci-fi film called Arrival. Spoilers ahead.
Okay, I
Watch
have to
out
get a water.
and take care.
Be right.
Louise Banks gives birth to a daughter and watches her grow into a young woman, only to see her succumb to a rare and incurable disease. She is heartbroken and her life is changed forever. It starts on the day they arrived. Louise is a linguist professor at a local university. She's walking to her first class in the morning when she notices the ruckus around the television in the common areas. There's a strange hum in the air this morning, but she ignores it. She greets her class but finds the students too distracted with their phones to pay attention. One student asks her to turn on the television. On the screen, breaking news is being broadcasted. An unidentified flying object has landed in Montana and 8 more have landed in locations around the world. Just then, the university alarm rings and Louise dismisses her class. As she goes home, she finds the world changed and in turmoil. People are evacuating, jets flying overhead, and the military taking over. At home, Louise watches the news and learns that 12 of the unidentified objects have landed. Unsure of what to do, she goes to work the next day only to find classes indefinitely suspended. She stays in her office and tunes into live updates. Just then, 2 men visit her in her office. It's Colonel G.T. Weber from Army Intelligence. She remembers him from that time she helped in the translations with some insurgents. Weber tells her that she's the top choice for translations and that's why he's in her office and not at Berkeley's. He plays her a recording of a human speaking to an entity giving out low growls. Louise knows that it's an entity from the objects. She tells Weber that it's impossible to translate it unless she was in the same room with the speaker, observing because this is a language that doesn't exist on Earth. Weber takes this as a ploy for her to be part of the scene, but he refuses. He doesn't want the research center to become a tourist site for anyone who has top security clearance. He tells Louise that if he leaves now, her chance is gone. He walks away, but Louise calls out to him. She asks if they're going to ask Danvers next, another linguist, and tells him that before they commit to him, ask him the Sanskrit word for war and its translation. Later that night, Louise falls asleep in front of the news when she wakes up to a helicopter landing in her backyard. Weber has returned and asks her for the meaning of gavesty, the Sanskrit word for war, and Louise replies, a desire for more cows. Weber knows that Louise is more capable to take on the job and orders her to be ready in 10 minutes. Louise joins the team on the helicopter and meets Drive, Ian Donnelly, a theoretical physicist whom she will be closely working with. Weber tells her that the first priority is to know what they want and where they're from. They arrive at the Montana site and are briefed with the protocol and whisked away to Dr. Kettler, who gives them some immunization shots. Louise arrives at the main control room and learns that the site is communicating with the other sites. She meets Agent Halpern from the CIA, who tells her that they haven't gotten much information from the object since it landed. Louise and Ian are taken to another room where they're equipped with hazmat suits. They join a small team and make their way to the object, now known as the pod. Every 18 hours, a door opens up at the bottom of the pod and the team goes in via a platform. Louise watches in awe as they get inside the pod and feels the deep absurdity of the whole situation. Once the platform reaches its limits, the team jumps into the tunnel.
You know this makes me think of? The movie with the chat? If you know, you know. You know, with the piano? Dun, 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 dun. Or whatever.
Floating their way to the rectangular light ahead of them. Louise hesitates, having second thoughts, but Weber grabs her and they make their way through the antechamber. They arrive at the main room and see a glass wall separating them from the entities inside. The team places a caged bird on the floor, indicating that while the bird is still alive, the oxygen levels in the room are safe. Soon enough, 2 giant cephalopod-like creatures appear behind the glass. They call the aliens heptapods, due to their 7 limbs.
Did you know that anything that isn't fully in line with Hassan's ideologies isn't right-wing or right-leaning or conservative or dog shit? Did you know that possibly sometimes you can align with somebody on a lot of different issues, yet you're not a complete degenerate? Okay? Did you maybe think that you watch so much of that shit that maybe you're like a, I'm not gonna say
The session is quickly over and they're brought to the disinfection room. Weber tells Louise and Ian that they have 2 hours to figure something out. They continue to listen to the
My man's a commie cucklord.
news and watch as the world burns down in lockdown, riots, and cult rituals. Agent Halpern communicates with the other sites, but they too are unsuccessful. The next day, they are set to enter the pod again when Louise has an idea. She brings a whiteboard and a pen, saying that they might be unable to understand their spoken language, but they might have a written basis of the language they're speaking. Inside the pod, Louise writes the word, human, and steps forward to show them. After a few seconds, one of the heptapods responds, drawing out its limb and creating a circular symbol with strokes. It continues giving out different circular symbols, giving the team its first breakthrough. Back at the site, Weber questions her if this is the right approach and how he would be able to explain it to the upper office. Louise defends her approach and says that if they don't teach the heptapods their own language, it would lead to a lot of miscommunication and things will take 10 times as long. Weber agrees for now but requires her to submit a list of words before the next session. Louise learns that not all countries are open to this friendly approach. The government is afraid that the other countries would follow General Shang and China's decision for a hostile move. Meanwhile, Louise explains to Weber,
Hey, Anonymous Unknown, this is your boy. Hey, look.
General Shang and
It's your
China's
boy.
decision for a hostile move. Meanwhile, Louise explains to Weber that in order to communicate with the heptapods, they first have to teach them the basics of the English language before they can move on to the big question, which is the purpose of their arrival. They go back into the pod and Louise introduces herself. Sensing the heptapods' confusion, Louise walks forward and takes off her hazmat suit. The team panics but she reassures them it's fine and continues with the operation. She walks to the screen and puts her palm on the glass. One of the heptapods follows her action and they properly introduce themselves again. Ian unzips his hazmat suit and introduces himself as well. She asks them who they are and each of the heptapods writes their names on the glass. Ian decides to nickname them Abbott and Costello. As they get back from the camp, Louise dreams about her daughter for the first time. Due to the session's success, Weber allows the operation to continue despite the contamination risks. Meanwhile, tensions from the soldiers arise from the camp, not knowing what kind of threat they're up against. Later that night, Louise dreams of her daughter again. They are in a field, exploring the flowers and picking rocks at a nearby creek. Over the next several weeks, Louise and Ian continue their research. Aside from seeing and hearing them, the heptapods leave no other footprint. The chemical composition of their spaceship is unknown. Assuming that the pods communicate with each other, they do so without detection. They also still have no idea why the pods chose to land on these specific locations. One of Louise's first breakthroughs is learning that there is no correlation between what a heptapod says and what a heptapod writes. She also learns that the heptapod's writing is semasigraphic, which means that it represents meaning and doesn't convey sound. Through the Pakistan site, they learn that a heptapod's logogram is free of time. Their writing has no forward or backward direction. Linguists like Louise call this nonlinear orthography, which makes them think if this is also how they process ideas. Louise and Ian study their language enough to create their first reply. Now, they're working on expanding their vocabulary, which would take another month. One night after a session, Louise and Ian hang out at the back of a pickup truck overlooking the pod. Ian expresses his admiration for her intelligence and willingness to keep going, and they talk a little bit about their personal lives. Louise thinks it's all up to them now, and Ian is glad that it's become that way. Outside the site, the world hasn't coped well with the presence of the pods. The looting and riots continue, especially after a leaked photograph of the aliens goes viral. The tensions around the site grew worse as well, with some soldiers thinking it's better off to draw the first fire before the aliens attack. On another night of working, Louise dreams of her daughter again. She's showing her a book about planets and her daughter shows her a picture she drew for her project in class. She begins explaining to her why she and her father aren't together anymore, but her daughter says it's fine. She's cut from her daydream by Ian and goes out to get some air. She thinks of her again. This time she sees her as a child and then later on as a teenager, lying sickly on a hospital bed. Later on, Louise finds herself in her room with Ian, who's discussing with her the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, wherein if you immerse yourself in another language, you can actually rewire your brain. He asks if she's dreaming in her language, and when she looks up, a heptapod is in her room. Louise wakes up in her bed, feeling relieved that it was all a dream. She meets up with Weber, who leads her to the control room to do
Dude, I don't bash her son's community.
a Mandarin training.
Okay, but sometimes they are pretty far out and they have pretty far ideologies. Okay, yeah. What about it? I'm not bashing him or his community. Okay, but the shit that they spew and say sometimes is pretty hardcore. Okay? They believe in hardcore shit sometimes. Okay? And I don't relate, that's all.
Translation. It turns out that their satellite picked up on a phone conversation with the Chinese military chief, General Shang. Louise translates the first sentence.
Here's one example.
Saying that each of the 12 is...
Okay, I'll give you one example. Don't get mad though. Don't get mad though. Okay? Okay? When people were looting, okay? And they were like, yeah, man, fucking dude, who cares? Loot that shit. Fucking fill your pockets. Fuck everybody, dude. See, that in my opinion, that was pretty hardcore. Okay.
is offering advanced technology and that their science team is attempting to decode the sets. She tells Weber that she doesn't understand the following phrases: suits, honor, and flowers. He tells her that an hour ago, China mobilized forces and now Russia is following their lead. Louise realizes that the phrases belong to sets in mahjong tiles and learns that they're using a game to converse with their heptapods. She raises her concerns about how problematic this is, with every conversation becoming like a game and every idea expressed through opposition, victory, and defeat. Weber then gives her the ultimatum and orders her to ask the big question, whether they're ready or not. Louise, Ian, and the team enter the pod again. Louise begins to form her logograms, asking the heptapods their purpose. Costello responds with a message saying, offer weapon. Back at the site, an argument ensues between Louise, Weber, and Agent Halpern. Louise insists that the heptapods may not know the difference between a weapon and a tool, and with a complex human language, sometimes one can be both. Ian adds that they don't know if the heptapods are offering a weapon or asking them to offer one, as the beginning of a trade. The only way to know the difference between the two is to go back in. A call interrupts their meeting and Agent Halpern offers his theory that this is the way for the aliens to divide them and make them fight amongst each other. The council disbands and Louise and Ian feel defeated. Back at the control room, chaos is unraveling. China and Russia have received the same message, misinterpreting it as a threat, and have cut their communication with the other pod sites, going off the grid and offline. Louise insists that this will only worsen the situation and they need to communicate with each other. She runs off with Ian to re-enter the pod. Afraid of the impending threat, several soldiers at the pod have formed a mutiny, carrying several boxes of explosives and placing them in the room, set to detonate in 10 minutes. Louise and Ian arrive and one of the soldiers tries to stop them, but they eventually let them go, despite knowing that the bomb will kill them. Louise and Ian enter the room to talk to Abbott and Costello, completely unaware of the bomb sitting several feet away from them. Louise asks them if they are offering the humans something. The heptapods reply with words like technology, visitors, and friends. She then asks them to give the technology now. Suddenly, Abbott starts tapping on the glass. Unbeknownst to them, Weber has sent security to arrest the rogue soldiers. Back in the room, Abbott keeps tapping on the glass. Louise walks forward and thinks Abbott wants her to write on the screen. She places both palms on the glass and begins writing together with Abbott. While in the middle of it, she dreams of her daughter again, setting her off to sleep and holding her hand. After they finish writing, Costello jets off, leaving hundreds of symbols on the screen all at once. They look back outside, hearing gunshots. As the time ticks down to 0, Abbott forces them outside of the room just as the bombs explode and the room closes. Louise and Ian are thrown into the antechamber, unconscious but alive. Louise wakes up and finds herself in Dr. Kettler's office with a concussion. They have survived the blast and Kettler informs them of the rogue soldiers.
Through the glass?
She looks for Ian and finds him in the main room with Weber and the rest of the
team.
Hot
somehow.
She tells them that they have to go back and explain to the heptapods what happened. He says that it's impossible because his orders have now changed. They need to evacuate and prepare for retaliation. Just then, a rumbling interrupts their conversation. The team runs outside and sees the pod lifting itself several miles higher from the ground. Later that night, China officially declares war against the aliens, urging several other countries to do the same. Louise and Ian continue to decode the heptapod's last message.
Oh, it's all
As
their
they
technology.
discuss, Louise's daughter enters her mind again. She's a young teenager now and she's asking...
Oh, they were shaking hands, said goodbye. They knew the bomb was there, they were gonna die. But they gave the gift of all their technology. And they unlocked all the knowledge through all they unzipped the file with all the circles. Boom.
Louise about a certain term that means
no?
two parties make
a
deal
he was just
and both
fucking,
get
that was
something
legit,
out of it.
okay.
Back at the site, Louise wakes up from her dream and learns that Ian has made a breakthrough. He says that the symbol for time is everywhere. He then calculates the amount of negative space in the message and concludes that it means 1 of 12. Louise presents this discovery to the council, saying that the message that the heptapods gave them is 1 of 12 and that they need to communicate with the other sites to piece the 12 messages together. Agent Halpern interrupts her and tells her that it's no use because they're blacked out and everyone is preparing for conflict. He then plays a recording taken from Russia. The aliens gave their final message: there is no time. Many become one. The recording is then cut off by gunshots. Louise insists on her theory, but Halpern remains hostile, asking how they are going to convince them.
I can't watch this, guys. I can't watch this again. This is just USA anti-Russia propaganda movie again that is shaping our youth perception through media images and influence through online services. I cannot believe this is happening, and we must stop this now, dude.
The other sites to share their data. Ian pipes in, saying they offer their data in return, making it a non-zero-sum game. Louise picks this up and remembers this from the conversation with her daughter. As Louise listens to the men argue in the room, she zones out and leaves. There's not enough time anymore and she must take the matters into her own hands. She walks to the pod and surprisingly, the pod sends a vessel down. She enters the vessel and is engulfed in a fog-like state. She struggles for a minute to breathe before her lungs stabilize. As the vessel opens, she finds herself in the room behind the glass wall filled with a similar fog. Costello approaches her and Louise learns that Abbott has died from the explosion. She breaks down and apologizes on behalf of humanity. She then asks the heptapod to send a message to the other sites. Costello says that Louise already has the weapon and that she should use it. She doesn't understand and asks their purpose. Costello says their purpose is to help humanity because, in 3,000 years, they will need humanity's help. She asks them how they can know the future. Just then, her daughter enters her mind again. They're at the same field, playing at the same creek. Louise looks confused and finally asks Costello who the child is. It turns out that Louise's dreams of her daughter weren't dreams, but premonitions of the future. With that last message, Costello disappears into the fog. Louise is ejected as the pod turns sideways. A convoy approaches her and Ian wraps a blanket around her. Just as she's being put in the car, she has another premonition. She's standing at the lake with her daughter. She asks Louise why her father doesn't look at her the same way anymore. Louise feels conflicted but tells her it's because she told her father something that he wasn't prepared for, something about a rare and incurable disease. In the present, Louise just realizes why her future husband left her.
What the fuck is that? Dude, what? $5. I'm a sub of your channel for 58 months. I cannot support you anymore. Dude, this guy, it's Karl Marx. Dude, listen, this has gone too far, boys. Guys.
Meanwhile, all the pods around the world have also turned sideways and the entire planet is preparing for global war. As Louise wanders through the site, she has another premonition. Her future daughter asks her why her name is Hannah. Louise tells her that her name is special because it's a palindrome, which means if it's spelled backward, it will still say Hannah. In her vision, she also sees herself publishing a book about the heptapod's universal language and teaching the language to other humans.
Oh no.
She finally realizes the heptapod's true purpose. Their weapon is their language and they shared all of their language with humanity. Their language opens up time and once you learn it, you begin to perceive time the way they do, in a non-linear state, so that you can see what's to come.
What?
She shares her discovery with Ian and Weber, but Weber tells her that the mission's over. Outside, Louise has another premonition. This time she's attending a gala at the United Nations.
If everybody knows the future, nobody lives anymore. Right? The whole point of living is that there is a now. If you know the future, there is no now. Therefore, there's no life.
General Shang approaches her and says that he only attended because he wanted to meet her. He tells her that 18 months ago, she did something even his superiors were unable to do and changed his mind. He continues to say that she called him on his private number. Louise is confused and says that she doesn't know his private number, but the general whips out his phone and shows the number to her. General Shang tells her that now she knows. He feels that it was important that he shows her that number despite not knowing the reason why. He then tells her that she told him something that he will never forget. She told the general his wife's dying words. At the present time, it dawns on Louise the thing that she has to do to stop this global war. She ventures back to the site and gets a hold of Agent Halpern's satellite phone. She calls General Shang's private number. This alerts security and they send several soldiers to confront her. Louise evades capture and hides in the disinfection room. General Shang answers the call and she tells him her purpose. Ian joins her in the room and shields her from the soldiers. She finally tells General Shang her message and he receives it. The call is a success and she puts her hands up in the air, surrendering to security. Suddenly, China pulls out from the attack and the other countries follow. The 12 sites then agree to share their data and complete the pieces of the puzzles together. With humanity working as one, the pods begin to elevate and disappear into outer space, just as quickly as they have arrived. Louise and Ian stand outside as they watch the site evacuate. She asks him if he would change things if he could see his whole life from start to finish. He tells her that the most surprising thing that has ever happened in his life was not meeting the heptapods, but rather, it was meeting her. He then declares his love for her. Louise looks at him, knowing that this is the face of her future husband, and reciprocates his love with an embrace. Even though Louise knows what's going to happen in the future, them getting married, giving birth to Hannah, and Hannah passing away, she embraces it fully and wholeheartedly, despite knowing that Ian will eventually leave them. So
You see, this doesn't make any sense, okay, because, listen, you guys said I'm brain dead, okay, for what I said earlier, but if you think about it thoroughly, okay, what I said makes sense, okay, the only reason that there is a future is that there's a now, okay, if you know the future, it disintegrates the now, it disintegrates it. What makes everything make sense is that there's a now. But knowing the future removes. Okay, guys, we got a bunch. Guys, listen. I don't want to overdo it, chat, but some of these are kind of bussin'. Boom. Oh, guys, I've never seen this before, guys. What movie is this?
Venture biography film from 2013, titled Captain Phillips. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. In 2009, merchant mariner Richard Phillips packs his luggage to take command of a container ship, MV Maersk, Alabama. He is in charge of transporting the ship, along with 23 crew members and 17,000 metric tons of cargo from the port of Salalah in Oman to Mombasa, Kenya. Richard leaves from his house with his wife, talking about their kids, unknown to what is coming for him in the near future. Somewhere else, in Ale, Somalia, a colony of pirates is approached by Somali gangsters who terrorize the poor people to rob ships for their own benefit. One of the men from the colony, Abdul Wali Muse, chooses 3 other men, Adan Bilal, Nur Naji, and Walid Elmi as his crew for their next heist. The 4 of them take their weapons and start their journey along with another boat full of pirates. They also have a monitor that uses satellite signals to show what part of the sea the ships are in. The pirates notice that most of the ships are near each other within a single area except for one that is far away from the others. The ship they are talking about is the MV Maersk, Alabama, that Richard is commanding. The pirates have tracked the ship's communication frequency and can hear all the calls that the commander makes to the US Navy headquarters. Using this information, they find out the ship's route and follow it. It takes them a day to catch up with the ship. At night, Commander Richard does research on the internet about the frequent pirate hijacks that have taken place in the area they are on. The following morning, he initiates a pirate drill to keep the crew on alert. Not much time has passed when he sees 2 boats approaching them on the radar. He uses his binoculars and sees that they are coming directly at the ship. He quickly calls the engine room and asks a crew member to divert a little left to confirm if the boats are following them. As the ship moves left, the boats also change their direction slightly. This confirms Richard's suspicions. He is sure that they are being approached by pirates. He hurriedly calls the UK Maritime Trade and informs them of the situation.
Useless.
The lady operator on the other end assumes that the boats are probably some fishermen but agrees to register the complaint. The captain ends the call stating that they are not here to fish. He looks at the boats again, which are now only 1.5 miles away from the ship. He notices that the people on board have weapons with them. In the moment of panic, Richard quickly thinks of a plan. He knows that the pirates are listening to the conversation, so he picks up the phone and fakes calling a warship. In a deeper voice, Richard pretends to be a warship soldier and claims they are sending air support to attack the pirates. His plan works and one boat of pirates panics. They divert their direction and return, but the boat with Muse and his crew keeps its pace. Following that, the captain orders the crew in the engine room to slow their speed and swerve the ship from left to right. This creates massive waves behind them that the pirate boat cannot keep up with. The pressure of the waves causes the boat's engine to fail. That way, the ship safely sails away from it. At night, Richard arranges a meeting with all the crew members of the ship. According to him, although the trouble is done for the day, the pirates might attack again tomorrow, hence everyone should be on high alert. One of the scared crew members claims that their job is to transport the materials, not fight pirates. He suggests they divert their route and go through a safer one, but Richard, who has done his research, claims that the area they are in has 5 different groups of pirates working from different directions, so their best bet would be to continue their journey as it is. The very next morning, the pirates follow them again. Richard alerts the crew quickly, then calls the U.S. Maritime, informing them of the emergency. The operator assures them that the Navy will be there shortly. But the pirates are already too close to the ship, so they operate the pressure water pumps to send them away. However, with Muse's skills, the pirates avoid the water streams while firing gunshots at the deck. They use a ladder and eventually end up on the ship. Richard realizes that the crew's life is in danger. He orders them to quickly hide in the engine room while he and two of the others stay on the top. He also declares supper time as a code word, which means that the crew can come out of the engine room. Until they hear the code word, they are told to stay put. Soon, the pirates enter the control room and point their guns at the three.
International waters?
Muse tells Richard that he doesn't need to be scared and that they are not here to kill anyone. Look at me.
I'm the captain now.
Richard claims that the ship
of
only
course
has
they
food
did.
supplies
Good job.
and documents.
Good job.
Other than that,
I
they have 30,000
commend this
cash, which he
channel.
offers the pirate
Well
to
done.
take. 30,000? Do I look like a beggar? Muse asks all the crew members to be called to the deck so he can take full control. Richard contacts the others and calls them to the deck. But since he didn't say the code word, the crew stays in the engine room. Muse gets impatient and asks to be taken to the engine room himself. Richard agrees to escort him and says that they should be careful because if the lights in the engine room are turned off, it will be too dark to navigate. While he says the last part, he turns the walkie-talkie on, secretly sending a message to the crew in the engine room. They decipher that the captain is asking them to turn the lights off. Chief Engineer Mike Perry goes to turn them off while First Officer Shane goes to get some water. At the same time, the captain, Muse, and his 17-year-old pirate friend Bilal make their way to the engine room. Richard tries to distract them by taking them to a different room, but Muse sees a map of the boat and asks to be taken to the engine room straight away. Since the engine room is too hot, Richard suggests they go to the dining room and take a bottle of water first. The three make their way to the room, giving Mike more time to turn the engine room's lights off. Shane, who is still in the dining room, hides when he sees Richard and the pirates enter. Richard notices him and deliberately asks Bilal why he does not have shoes on. After the three leave, Shane calls the others in the engine room and asks them to place pieces of broken glass on the floor as a trap for Bilal. The crew obliges and places pieces of broken glass in the entrance. So, when Bilal steps in a while later, he is injured. He whimpers in pain for a while, after which, they go further into the room. Just then, the lights go off, making it impossible to see anything. This makes Muse extremely mad. He asks Richard for answers, but Richard innocently claims that he has been with them the whole time, so he doesn't know. Muse asks Richard to take Bilal to the upper deck and tend to his injuries while he looks for the crew. After Richard and Bilal leave, the crew gains enough courage to attack Muse. They manage to hold him hostage within seconds. They make Muse call his friends on the deck and ask them to leave Richard and the other two if they want Muse back alive. The captain then offers Muse a lifeboat and $30,000 to leave the ship, and he accepts it. Following that, Richard teaches one of them to operate the lifeboat and hands Muse the money. Just when he is in between two pirates, Muse signals the one behind him to push Richard inside. They quickly operate the lifeboat and run away with Richard. The crew panics but decides to follow the boat, not wanting to leave their captain on his own. Then, the US Navy is informed of the situation and is put on high alert. They send drones to the sea to monitor the lifeboat and keep it in check. They figure out that the boat is moving towards Somalia, where the Navy can do nothing about the abduction. So, they will have to rescue the captain while they are still in the waters. The pirates decide to ransom Richard's life in exchange for millions of dollars of insurance money from the shipping company. At night, exhaustion gets the best of the pirates, and they start fighting among themselves. Moreover, they run low on the plant-based amphetamine khat that they have been using to get high. The next day passes as they make their way to the Somali coast, but they lose contact with the mothership that has been controlling and advising them till now. Richard is unusually chatty with the pirates and keeps on asking questions. One of the pirates named Najee lets the frustration get the better of him and attacks Richard. He threatens to kill him but is stopped by Muse. Soon, the USS Bainbridge arrives in front of the lifeboat and shines spotlights at it, blinding the pirates. A man calling himself Nemo, who speaks the Somali language, is on board the Bainbridge. He communicates with the pirates and offers them food and water before starting the negotiation as they care for their captain's health. Muse demands $10 million in exchange for Richard's life and even agrees to meet with the Navy to negotiate. Nemo and some soldiers get on boats and make their way over to the lifeboat. They ask for proof that Richard is okay before taking the negotiation further. Muse brings him to the door of the lifeboat when Richard asks the Navy members to contact his family and tell them he's okay, that he's sitting in seat 15 on the lifeboat. The pirates miss that the seat number was a hint so the Navy can predict the positions of the pirates inside the lifeboat. Muse pushes Richard back inside and demands $10 million.
Why does just jump
Nemo
out and
tells
let him
Muse that
fucking
it
tap
won't be
these
easy,
cocksuckers,
but
man?
they can negotiate some conditions. An agitated Najee raises his pistol, close to Richard's ear, and fires it through the roof of the lifeboat. Muse quickly contacts the worried Bainbridge, informing them that Richard is fine and letting him talk to them through the phone. Muse then tells them that he will contact them again once they are in Somalia.
Guys.
A while later, the USS...
Yeah, it always says it. Yeah, dude, they're gonna shoot, they're gonna shoot, dude. Dude. Why would you ever shoot the hostage? Guys, the hostage is everything. Dude, you should be sucking the hostage's cock at any given time. Why would you shoot the hostage?
Halliburton and USS Boxer arrive, fully armed and ready to take on the pirates. Richard tells Muse that he needs to pee, so Muse allows him to step out. Bilal is already outside on the edge. Richard tricks him and pushes him into the water and jumps in himself in an attempt to flee. He starts swimming toward the Bainbridge, and the Navy crew members spot two people in the water. But since it is too dark, they are unable to identify if it is Richard. Muse then jumps in the water trying to get Richard back on board, while Najee threatens to shoot him. Afraid to be shot, Richard deliberately steps back into the boat.
Oh, the thing.
Now, an enraged Najee kicks and
it's by Giuseppe going for a fish trying to get Solomon
Richard,
in the
but
fucking
Muse pulls
water,
him
man.
back before he kills him. A Navy helicopter flies over the lifeboat and the Bainbridge CO orders Muse and his men to surrender. Muse responds by grabbing Richard and forcing him through the door, holding a pistol to his head. He then aims the pistol at the helicopter and fires off a few rounds. Now, to calm them, the Bainbridge CO begins naming each of the pirates and where they are from and recites everything about their mother boat as well. Muse and the others are visibly very much alarmed by that. As they talk, the Navy SEALs position themselves on the helicopter deck of the Bainbridge, armed with sniper rifles. They point them at the pirates inside the lifeboat looking for an opportunity to shoot when all four of them are in the clear. A skiff goes out to the lifeboat to attach a tow rope and pick up Muse to take him to the Bainbridge to negotiate. They also attach a listening device to the outside of the lifeboat. While there, a bag containing a yellow shirt is tossed over for Richard. The man tossing the shirt also advises Richard that he should put on the shirt to keep warm and make sure to stay seated in the same seat he had been sitting in. Now, the SEAL snipers try but can't get confirmed sightings of each of the three pirates. Richard starts to write one last note to his family on some scrap paper. Najee, who is now the group's leader after Muse is gone, sees him writing and grabs the paper from him. This infuriates Richard and he attacks Najee. The fight ends as he is tied up and blindfolded by the pirates. Najee realizes that there is no way for them to get out of the situation safely, so he prepares to execute Richard. Men on the Bainbridge witness this and advise the SEAL team commander. Richard then says that he loves his wife, apologizing to her for not being home with her. By then, Bilal and Elmi are in the clear to be taken out by the snipers, but Najee is still not in sight. The SEAL team commander then orders the tow stopped, which jerks the boat and causes Najee to stumble into view. After all the pirates are in the clear, the execution is carried out immediately. Muse is then cuffed and arrested. He questions a Navy officer if his friends are dead and he tells him the truth. Richard is rescued and treated for his wounds. Still in shock, he asks if his family knows that he is safe and the chief tells him that they know and he will be able to call them soon. Richard reunited with his family and Muse was charged with piracy and sentenced to 33 years. Richard returned to his job at sea a year later. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this.
Kind of wanted the pirates to win somehow. Ah, man. They had no chance, man. Man, they had no chance, dude. Dude, is that they kept surrendering. I mean, you know, in the movie. In the movie, bitch. In the movie, bitch. It's a movie. Stop being parasocial. You're not his friend. Okay? You're not his mama, his dad. You're not his nobody. Okay? This is not Captain Phillips. Okay? This is fucking Tom Hanks. Oh my god, this shit is... Guys, come on, man. Wake... Guys, it's Tom Hanks. Look, I can prove it. Look. That's Tom Hanks. It's Tom Hanks. Okay? Okay? It's based on a true story. I don't give a fuck. In this scenario, It's Tom Hanks. I wanted Tom Hanks to lose. That doesn't mean that I wanted Captain Phillips to die in real life. I said I wanted Tom Hanks to lose. Forrest Gump? That's not Forrest Gump. Are you smoking? That's another character, dude. Man, you guys are getting it twisted. I'm actually gonna stop reading chat. Let's watch something else. Ooh. Ooh. Classic. Wait, actual last. I'm done. Actual last.
Today I will show you a thriller, drama film from 2019, titled
Classic.
Parasite. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. In a small semi-basement apartment in Seoul, the Kim family does their best to survive. Father Ki-taek, mother Chung-suk, daughter Ki-young, and son Ki-woo work folding pizza boxes for a very low wage and struggle to make ends meet. This makes them go as far as using their phones next to the bathroom window to be able to steal Wi-Fi, or keeping their windows open for the fumigator's poison smoke to enter the house and get rid of the bugs, even if they end up breathing it too. One evening, they're visited by Min Hyuk, a friend of Ki-woo's that brings them a scholar's rock from his grandfather's collection, meant to be an amulet for wealth. He also brings Ki-woo a work opportunity. Since Min Hyuk will traveling abroad soon, he wants Ki-woo to take over his tutoring of the daughter of a very rich family. Ki-woo has good English knowledge after his years in the military and trying out the university entrance exam 4 times. Ki-young can just fake his papers to pretend he's a university student since she's good with design programs, and it's not like his employers will look at them closely. The wife is very simple-minded, so having Min Hyuk's recommendation should be enough.
Guys, could you go to jail for faking documents to institutions that aren't governmental? You can? Fuck. Why?
Best clothes and with a forged document in hand, Ki-woo goes to the Park family's house, which is on the fancy part of the city. After being allowed inside by the housekeeper Gook Moon Gwang.
Here's my take. If you apply for a job, okay, and they ask for and shit, and you pass interviews and shit like that, okay, if your docs are fake, okay, you still deserve to get the job.
He's interviewed by Choi Yeon-gyo, also known as
You
Mrs.
finesse
Park.
the system, you should
Just
be
as
rewarded.
predicted, she barely looks at the paperwork and trusts Min Hyuk's word, but she wants to sit through the first lesson to check Ki-woo is a good, proper man. Ki-woo will be teaching the daughter Dae, who starts off as very shy and gets startled when Ki-woo suddenly grabs her wrist, but since it's only a gesture to comfort her when she's having a hard time understanding the exercise, she quickly softens up to him. Mrs. Park is happy with what she's seen, so she decides to hire Ki-woo and pay him well. After the first class, he also gets to meet her son, Da-song, who has joined the scouts and is obsessed with playing Indians. Ki-woo used to be a scout too, so he shows understanding, and when Mrs. Park shows him her son's drawings, Ki-woo gets an idea. He begins talking about Da-song's art as if it was truly a masterpiece, and when Mrs. Park mentions she needs a new art teacher because none of the previous ones lasted more than a month, Ki-woo recommends his cousin's classmate Jessica, a highly qualified art therapist. In truth, he's talking about his sister, who also shows up the next day for an interview while pretending to be this Jessica teacher after just having read some stuff about art therapy and psychology online. While Mrs. Park talks to her, Ki-woo tutors Dae, who is jealous of Ki-woo being friends with the art teacher. Ki-woo assures her he isn't interested in her, then the two of them kiss. Back to Ki-young, she convinces Mrs. Park to let her give Da-song his first lesson alone, and by the end of it, she impresses her by showing her how well behaved her son is now.
Why would you risk the bag? Why would you risk the bag for a kissy? Like what? Like if you want to get it, you want to kiss it, man. You're all the way, man. You can only risk the bag if you're going all the way in. There's no point risking the bag for a half-ass. It's just lame, man. Who does that shit,
And by the
man?
end of it, she impresses her by showing her how well behaved her son is now. She also shows Mrs. Park signs of trauma on Da-song's paintings, mentioning an incident he went through during first grade. Convinced her son needs art therapy, Mrs. Park hires Ki-young under excellent pay. Later that day, she also meets the family father Park Dong-ik, who offers his chauffeur Yoon to drive her home. Yoon insists to take her to her house, but wanting to hide she lives in a poor area to keep up the lie, she asks him to leave her at the train station because she's meeting someone. During that trip, Ki-young gets an idea and takes out her panties to hide them in the car. The Kim family begins eating better thanks to their children's new salaries while planning their next move. Meanwhile, Mr. Park finds the panties in the car and thinks Yoon has been taking lovers in the vehicle, possibly even consuming narcotics as well because no one in their right mind forgets their underwear in a car. When Ki-young leaves after class, Mrs. Park takes the chance to ask her opinion about the driver, so she tells her about how Yoon tried to take her home instead of the station. Mrs. Park decides they'll be firing Yoon under some excuse not to start a scandal, and Ki-young swoops in, saying a mature employee is more trustworthy before recommending her uncle's old driver. Of course, this man turns out to be Ki-taek, who used to work as a chauffeur when younger. He goes for a test drive with Mr. Park, who is impressed by his good manners and his vast knowledge of the city that doesn't need GPS to reach his location. His driving is so smooth, Mr. Park doesn't even spill his drink when the car turns, so he hires him on the spot. The last part of the plan is the most difficult one. Moon Gwang is a stubborn, cunning woman that has been working in that house since it was owned
so far in the story, he's the only qualified guy. I respect it.
A previous family. Ki-woo learns from Dahae that peaches are forbidden in the house because Moon Gwang is allergic, so he and Ki-young begin throwing peach fuzz at her when she isn't noticing. Moon Gwang ends up going to the doctor for a checkup since she doesn't believe it to be allergies, and Ki-taek is there as well as part of the plan. He takes a selfie by making Moon Gwang appear in the background, then shows it to Mrs. Park while telling her he overheard Moon Gwang say she has tuberculosis. At the house, when Moon Gwang begins coughing because of the allergies, he puts some ketchup on the tissues in the trash to make it look like she had coughed up blood. Ashamed to have a sick employee in the house, Mrs. Park makes Ki-taek promise he won't tell her husband about it, then fires Moon Gwang under some excuse, telling Mr. Park she quit. Mr. Park begins to worry about the lack of cooking and cleaning in the house, so Ki-taek gives him the card of a prestigious agency he almost worked for, giving Mr. Park permission to tell his wife that he got the idea. This agency supposedly provides families with trustworthy employees, but in truth, it's another ruse by the Kims. The phone on the card is a second number Ki-young got for this, and when Mrs. Park calls, she pretends to be a secretary asking for lots of official paperwork. Eventually, Chung-suk is hired as the new housekeeper and the whole Kim family is in. Da-song notices they all smell the same, but they realize it isn't the soap, it's the smell of their old cheap apartment. One day, the Parks leave on a camping trip and leave Chung-suk taking care of the house, so as soon as they're gone, the whole Kim family comes over to stay for a while. They use all the rooms, eat all the food, drink the expensive wines, and Ki-woo even steals Dahae's diary to read it because he wants to propose to her when she gets into the university. The Kims spend their dinner fantasizing about what marrying into a rich family would be like while a storm rages outside when suddenly, someone rings the doorbell. It's Moon Gwang, who claims she forgot something in the basement when she was fired and left in a hurry. While her family hides, Chung-suk lets her in, but Moon Gwang is taking too long down there, so Chung-suk goes to see what is going on. She finds Moon Gwang trying to move a cupboard, so she helps her, revealing a door behind it that takes them to an underground bunker created by the architect and previous homeowner. Moon Gwang's husband, Oh Gun-se, has been living there for years, hiding from loan sharks. Moon Gwang helped him move there when the previous owner left and the house was waiting to be sold, and the Parks never learned about the bunker. Moon Gwang would go down there and sneak in some food for him when the Parks weren't looking, which explains why Mr. Park thought she ate too much. She came today because she knew the Parks would be gone, so she wanted to talk to Chung-suk alone to ask for permission for her husband to still live down there, even being willing to pay her for bringing him food. Chung-suk refuses to accept this and takes out her phone to call the police, but at that moment, her family slips off the stairs while trying to spy on them. Moon Gwang wastes no time and records them with her phone.
What's up? Non. Tu sais pas ça combien de temps?
Peut-être 2 heures max.
Ok, si j'ai faim ou quand même, je vais te...
Texte-moi, ok?
Je te texte, merci beaucoup.
C'est bon.
Tout.
Phone, capturing on camera the fact they call each other family names. Now Moon Gwang and her husband have control of the situation, threatening to tell the Parks of their ruse if the Kims don't do as they say. They all go upstairs, where the Kims are made to crouch in a corner while Moon Gwang and Gun-se enjoy the house. Moon Gwang even calls them out for being pigs and making a mess in the living room, because when she and her husband used the house when the Parks were gone, they would always be respectful of the architect's artful touch. While she's giving them such a speech, the Kims take the chance to tackle the couch and wrestle the couple on the ground for the phone. Ki-taek grabs Gun-se and Ki-young drops a bunch of peaches on Moon Gwang to knock her out while Ki-woo takes the phone to delete the recording. Suddenly, everyone freezes when they hear the house's phone ring. Chung-suk picks it up and is shocked to hear Mrs. Park asking her to get dinner ready because they're coming back earlier since the storm made it impossible to keep up a camping trip. As soon as she hangs up, the entire family jumps into action. Chung-suk begins cooking, Ki-taek takes Gun-se to the basement and ties him up, Ki-young hides the trash under the furniture, and after taking an unconscious Moon Gwang to the basement too, Ki-woo goes upstairs to return the diary. The Parks return right at that moment, so Ki-woo hides under Dahae's bed and Ki-young rolls under the table. Moon Gwang wakes up and tries to escape, but Chung-suk pushes her back into the basement, making her fall and hit her head. Ki-taek drags her unconscious body to where her husband is hitting his head against the light switches while following a Morse code guide he's pinned on the wall. Since Da-song is a scout, He hopes he will see his message one day, but Ki-taek finds the idea ridiculous before tying him up to a pipe and leaving. Upstairs, while having dinner, Mrs. Park tells Chung-suk about Da-song's traumatic first-grade experience. One night, the boy sneaked into the kitchen to steal his birthday cake and saw a ghost coming from the basement, who was actually Gun-se. This caused him to have convulsions and foam at the mouth, and this is why he's been going to therapy since then and they're never home for his birthday. Meanwhile, Ki-woo is almost found under the bed by Dae, but luckily, she picks up her dog and doesn't look further under the bed. After the Park couple goes to their bedroom, Ki-woo and Ki-taek sneak out into the living room to find Ki-young in order to leave, but suddenly, Da-song yells and comes downstairs, so the three of them end up hiding under the table. It turns out Da-song wants to camp out in the garden under the rain and his parents let him, deciding to sleep on the couch to keep an eye on him. Now the Kims must listen to the Parks complain about their smell and get frisky with each other. When the couple is finally deeply asleep, the Kims get out of the house and run under the rain towards their neighborhood, which is getting flooded with sewer water. Their apartment is flooded as well, so they retrieve as many belongings as they can before leaving to spend the night in a local gymnasium that opens their doors to poor people that have lost their homes to the storm. Ki-woo has brought the Scholar's Rock with him, and he hugs it while he sleeps because he's upset to hear his dad doesn't have a plan to deal with the problem they left in the basement. Back in the bunker, Moon Gwang dies from the concussion she got earlier, and Gun-se tries to send a Morse code message with the lights asking for help. Da-song sees it and deciphers it, but it's nonsense. Gun-se isn't in his right mind to spell correctly and only ends up with a bloody forehead.
The
following day,
moron
Mrs. Park
idiot.
decides to throw an impromptu party for Da-song's birthday.
What is wrong with him, man?
And the Kims must put up their best friendly faces even when they're actually feeling devastated after losing their home. Chung-suk must cook and prepare the tables outside. Ki-taek must drive the parents around to buy all the party supplies while they keep making faces at his smell, and the siblings must put up their smart teacher personas since they're invited to the party as very important guests. During the party, Mr. Park and Ki-taek dress up as Indians because they're planning to make a whole act for Da-sun to save his cake. After spending some time with Dae, Ki-woo takes the Scholar's Rock and goes down to the basement, where he's jumped on by Gun-se, who somehow has managed to free himself. After stopping him from fleeing with a cord around Ki-woo's neck, Gun-se knocks him out with the rock, then leaves the bunker, grabbing a knife from the kitchen on his way to the garden party. Seeking to avenge Moon Gwang, Gun-se runs out and stabs Ki-young. Da-song begins having a seizure as soon as he sees him while Dae finds Ki-woo's body and carries him out to ask for help. Ki-taek goes to check on her daughter, trying to keep a hand on her wound to stop it from bleeding while Chung-suk jumps on Gun-se and kills him with a barbecue skewer. Mr. Park doesn't care about any of his employees, he just wants to take his son to the hospital, so he demands Ki-taek to drive him. But Ki-taek doesn't want to leave his family behind, so he throws the keys at him so he can drive himself. The keys fall on the grass, and at that moment, Gun-se falls on top of them. Mr. Park goes to retrieve them, but even during such a deadly emergency, he covers his nose while moving the body. Enraged by such a despicable act, Ki-taek takes the knife and kills Mr. Park before fleeing the scene. Weeks later, Ki-woo wakes up from brain surgery. The injury and the procedure have left his mind in a delicate state, so he can't help laughing through all the things that proceed to happen to him. Finding out his sister is dead and his father is missing, getting arrested, being put on trial for fraud, being allowed to leave on probation because of the traumatic incident that they aren't charged for because it was on self-defense. He only stops laughing when he sees the news report recording the now empty house, making everything that happened feel more real. Neither he nor his mother knows where his father is, but the detectives keep on tailing them for a while, thinking they may take them to him. Months later, after the news finally moved on to other subjects and the cops don't follow them anymore, Ki-woo goes up the mountain and spies on the Park's house, which is now occupied by a German family that bought it because they didn't know its history. There, Ki-woo realizes someone is using the lights to send a message in Morse code. It's his dad, who all this time has been hiding in the house bunker. He has buried Moon Gwang in the backyard and survives by raiding the kitchen every night. He also sends the Morse messages every day, hoping his son would see them one day. Back in his old apartment he still shares with his mother, Ki-woo writes a letter for his dad, promising to work hard and get enough money to one day buy the house and reunite with him. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos
Guys,
like
this movie, it's a book before the movie, and I actually read the book. So what happens is that the guy thinks he's gonna make it, but he's lacking money. So he has about half the money for the house. So what he does is he goes to the casino, and he goes all in on red, right? And then it doesn't hit. And he goes to zero, so he takes a loan out, and boom, it still doesn't hit. And now he's actually in with loan sharks, right? And then they kill him.
Welcome to Movie Caps. Today I will show you a thriller, mystery, action film from 2008, titled Eagle Eye.
Let's try this
Spoilers
one.
ahead. Watch out and take care. The United States Armed Forces have a lead on a suspected criminal in Pakistan. They are unsure whether he is the right target and their computer system shows a 51% match and recommends aborting the mission. The target is at a funeral.
Why is half the movies on this about the Middle East and some government-controlled fucking space mission involving arms and fuck, man?
Collateral damage, but he only comes out of hiding every couple years. The Defense Secretary Callister calls the president and recommends aborting the mission, but he is given the green light and they go through with it. Jerry is in a card game with his coworkers in the back room. The only other guy left in the game clearly wants to fold, but Jerry baits him into staying in. He gives him a whole speech about how he needs the money to impress his girlfriend and take her out. But he ends up having the better hand and winning all the money. The manager comes in and says that he has to come out, and it's revealed that he works at a photocopy store.
Oh.
Jerry gets back to his apartment, where his landlady is asking for the rent. He's broke, and can only give her about $10. He gets a call from his mom, and it's obviously tragic news, since all he can do when he hears it is slide down to the floor. Jerry arrives at a funeral, and everyone looks a little shocked to see him. The funeral is for his twin brother Ethan, so Jerry walking in is a bit like seeing a ghost for them. Jerry slips a paper airplane into his brother's uniform while paying his final respects. Jerry and his dad have an argument in his deceased brother's room. It's revealed that Jerry dropped out of Stanford, and his dad wants him to go back. Ever since dropping out, Jerry has just been drifting from state to state. Rachel drops off her son Sam at a train station. He's leaving to go play with his band for the upcoming State of the Union address. Her ex-husband briefly shows up, but it's clear that she's the one doing all the work to raise Sam. After they leave, a mysterious man picks up Sam's trumpet case while talking to someone on a headset. Jerry goes to an ATM.
You fucker!
Suddenly, there's $750,000 in his account and the ATM starts spewing out money. He scoops up most of it and takes off. He pays his landlady, who tells him that there are some packages for him in his apartment. When he goes inside, he finds his apartment filled to the brim with weapons, chemicals, fake passports and documents. He gets a call from an unknown number and a woman's voice tells him to get out of there because the FBI will arrive in 30 seconds. He doesn't comply, so he gets arrested shortly after. He denies any of the stuff is his, but the lead investigator Agent Tom doesn't believe him and thinks he's a criminal, so he is denied a phone call. Despite this, they receive a fax authorizing the phone call for Jerry. Meanwhile, Rachel gets a call that she thinks is from her son, but turns out to be the same mysterious woman who called Jerry. She tells Rachel that they will derail the train her son is on unless she does what they say. Jerry picks up the phone and the voice comes on again, this time telling Jerry to get down flat on the floor. He still refuses to cooperate but notices a crane coming in a reflection and gets down moments before it smashes through the windows. He sees a sign on the next building telling him to jump. Seeing no other option, he jumps and falls onto a train track, almost getting run over.
Wait, how?
He then sees a sign telling him to board it and he does. He's on the train and hears a phone ringing. It's from a person sleeping near him. He sees that the call is for him, answers and receives further instructions, but hangs up and boards a different train. He then receives a message saying he disobeyed. He tries to ignore it but the train stops and starts going backwards. Jerry is uncooperative, so everyone on the train receives a message that he's a wanted criminal and a door opens. Jerry has no choice but to jump off the train and follow the new orders, which is to get into the black SUV that's waiting for him. The SUV turns out to be being driven by Rachel. They fight until they realize that they're actually both in the same boat. Meanwhile, the FBI have caught up to Jerry and the voice instructs them to drive, giving detailed instructions on turns and speed, as well as turning all the traffic lights green so they manage to stay ahead of the police.
Guys.
They end up in a wrecking yard and the car's still on their tail get picked off by the...
Guys, it's a life or death scenario, guys. It's the end. You don't even know them. They're kind of hot. You're kind of hot. Okay, kiss. I don't give a fuck. Why ask questions? Just do it.
Large cranes that are being remotely controlled. The SUV gets lifted up as
they skip the introduction, the texting, the judgments on social media, the garbage, bringing the ice the first day. Everything is all done. You're lined up. Okay, I don't give a fuck. You're spawned in. It's 1v1. You're melee range. It's done deal, dude. Stop fucking around. Just kiss already.
Well, and they are thrown in a trash barge and the car is sunk, tricking the cops into thinking that Jerry and Rachel have drowned. Meanwhile, at a secret military base, a new kind of explosive is tested. It resembles a small crystal, and can only be detonated with a specific sound frequency. The voice steals one of the crystals, sending it to a jeweler who turns it into a necklace. Then, that detonator is sent to the man who stole Sam's trumpet. He hides the device inside it. As Rachel and Jerry are vibing on the ferry, the voice instructs them to go to a specific location. They walk down a dirt road in the middle of nowhere until a van approaches and the man who stole the trumpet gets out. He says that the voice told him to drive them, but he won't follow her orders anymore. He tries to run, but the electrical lines snap and he evaporates. Jerry gets another call and the voice informs him that deserting is not an option and orders them to drive to Indianapolis. As they are driving in the van and talking, Rachel concludes that Jerry's brother is somehow involved with this and Jerry gets pissed. He stops the car and starts walking away but ends up staying so he can help Rachel save her son. The voice tells them to steal a case from some armed security that are about to appear. It sets off the airbag in the armored car and opens the back so they can get some guns. They steal the case and run. The voice sets off fire alarms all down the street, creating a diversion for them to get away. A bus pulls over and a woman on a phone asks if he's Jerry. They get in. Jerry realizes that the case has a timer on it. Jerry and Rachel are directed to a display room at a hardware store, where the voice reveals that it knows everything about them. They realize that the voice is not a human, but an artificial intelligence. It tells them that they have been recruited to defend the country.
At least 2 games of League.
Agent Perez is brought to a secret government facility known as Eagle Eye, where a supercomputer known as Arya is kept. Arya has the same female voice that has been directing Jerry and Rachel. Perez is told that Arya is not officially online, and is still in development. They tell Perez that they are using the computer to try and find Jerry and Rachel. They have no idea that Arya is the one controlling them. Agent Tom and the FBI investigate the armored truck robbery. Tom isn't surprised that all the cameras in the area apparently malfunction and goes into a store that has old cameras not connected to the network. The video quality is less than ideal, but they do some zooming and enhancing CSI style and find out what bus Jerry and Rachel are on.
Enhance.
The bus reaches an airport, and a stranger hands them new passports and further instructions.
The reflection.
Arya helps them through security,
Enhance.
hacking into the TSA screen so that they can't see what's in the case. Agent Tom spots Jerry and chases them. With Arya's help, they escape and board an Air Force plane in the cargo bay after a fight with Agent Tom. The case timer goes off, and it opens. Inside are 2 injection guns. Arya tells them that it's an experimental medicine that will slow their heart rate so they require less oxygen, thus allowing them to travel in the unpressurized cargo bay. They inject themselves, and get into a nearby crate as per the voice's instructions. Agent Perez and Major Bowman are viewing a video of Ethan's last day on the job and questioning why he walks around for seemingly no reason.
Chat? There's more than just that. Guys, come on. Guys, come on. Hey, guys.
Perez then notices his phone flickering and realizes that it's Morse code and Bowman starts writing it down, but Arya starts shutting down the video.
Guys, it's a classic. There's less blood flow because all the blood is going. Come on.
But the computer states that the data is corrupted and shuts it off. As Bowman keeps telling Arya that the feed is top priority, Perez signals him to not bother. They still figure out the message Ethan left and Bowman brings Perez to a nearby fire extinguisher, which apparently is the only place Arya can't see, and they find an SD card from Ethan's phone. The video shows Arya disobeying direct commands and planning to replace the current government. Perez calls Tom and updates him on her findings, but Arya starts jamming the signal. Perez, Bowman and Defense Secretary Callister enter a secure room where no signals can enter. They show Callister the video and he realizes that this is happening because of the drone strike from earlier, which Arya wanted to stop, but they did anyway. The intel was false and they killed a bunch of civilians, causing violent retaliations against US citizens. Meanwhile, Arya is reading the waves in Callister's cup, so she knows everything they say. They also realized that before Ethan died, he locked off part of Arya with a biometric scanner based on his face and voice. When Perez and Bowman leave, Arya locks Callister in the room and tries eliminating them, but they manage to get away. Callister asks why he's being spared and Arya tells him that since the current government is incapable of acting in people's best interest, she concluded that the only solution is to replace it and he will be the new president. Jerry and Rachel reach their destination and realize that they're at the Pentagon. They are led to the Eagle Eye. Turns out Arya needed Jerry to remove the biometric lock that Ethan implemented. His face is scanned and he is identified as his brother. He is then ordered to repeat a sentence and the biometric lock is removed, giving Arya full authority to continue Operation Guillotine. It will take out the entire chain of command starting with the president and rebuild the government from scratch. Jerry realizes that Ethan tried to stop her. Arya killed Ethan because of it. She orders Rachel to kill Jerry so that he can't apply the lock again and stop Operation Guillotine.
You fucking
Even
bitch.
though Arya threatens to kill her son, She doesn't obey because she can't bring herself to shoot Jerry. Tom and the Pentagon security reach the room and arrest Jerry, but Rachel is already gone. She is intercepted by a man and escorted out. Jerry is put in a room and Tom is informed that a small explosive, powerful enough to destroy a whole football field, has been
I don't know what's in the box. I know what happened in the box.
stolen. It has been tracked to the
What happened is that she doesn't care about the other son because it's gonna die, because she's getting a new son. She's replacing
music shop guy, and Tom starts connecting the dots. He picks up Jerry and personally drives him out of the building.
It's logical.
Jerry instructs Tom to throw his phone and everything that has a signal out of the window. Tom tells Jerry about the explosive activated by sound, and Jerry realizes why Arya needed Rachel and her son. Arya activates a drone. The military try to stop it but have no control over it, so they authorize a fighter pilot to shoot it down. Arya ejects him. Tom and Jerry's car is hit by a missile, causing them to
Tom and
crash.
Jerry.
They quickly find a different car and keep going. They enter a tunnel, but the drone follows. They manage to dodge the next missile by driving in front of a truck, which gets blown up instead. The container lands on their car. Agent Tom is too wounded to go on, and gives Jerry his badge and his gun. He tells him to go on ahead and warn everyone. The drone is coming back for Jerry, but Agent Tom sacrifices himself by crashing into it, causing it to blow into pieces. The man who intercepted Rachel makes her a visitor pass. She puts on a new outfit that Arya has provided her with. It includes the necklace with the explosive in it, disguised as a diamond. Meanwhile, Jerry storms the Capitol. He shows security Tom's FBI badge and states that there's a threat to the president, so he is let in.
A little trick
He
of
runs
chemistry.
through a tunnel but is stopped by a guard. Jerry knocks him out and takes his uniform. All the targets have arrived at the Capitol. The president gives a speech and the orchestra comes on.
Wanna find out?
Rachel sees her son and they start playing the anthem. Meanwhile, Perez and Bowman are removing Arya's hardware. Arya starts a backup process, but Perez smashes her brain before she can finish the upload. Things are already in motion though. Rachel's son, Sam, has the detonator built into his trumpet. Just before he's about to play the trigger note, Jerry runs in and fires his gun in the air. Chaos breaks out and the security shoot Jerry multiple times. In a committee hearing after the chaos Arya caused, Callister urges that another supercomputer like Arya should not be built. Sometimes the very measures we put into place to safeguard our liberty become threats to liberty itself.
Because after the first shot, I was screaming, I don't think the kid's is going to fucking play the last note.
At a funeral for Agent Tom, Jerry receives a Medal of Honor. His father is there, clearly proud of him. Jerry attends Sam's birthday party and brings a big present. Rachel tells him she's glad he's here and kisses Jerry on the cheek. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe.
Boo fucking who? This is so fucking bad, dude. On the cheek. Is this really the best I could give Shia, dude? A fucking cheekbone kiss for the whole movie? That's the whole juice he gets. Nah, they did my boy dirty. Dude, they fucking scammed my mans. That's weird.
Caps. Today I will show you a crime, drama, history film from 2008.
This one is pretty good too. Steal more content, dude. I'm what we call in the creator space as the exploiter class. Okay, it's a tier of creator. It's a zone you don't want to be in. Now the exploiter class doesn't create anything. They shapeshift into making you think they create something, but all you do is steal instead, right? But you like it so much that you end up not giving a fuck that it's stolen in the first place. And everybody gets their mind twisted about what the fuck is going on, right? And in the end, I win. Boom.
That is based on a true story, titled 21. Welcome to Movie Caps. Today I will show you a crime, drama, history film from 2008 that is based on a true story, titled 21.
Guys,
spoilers ahead.
Remember, guys, do not gamble. Do not put money into the system, guys. If you do this, guys, you will go broke. You will not make money. You're not going to break even. You lose all your money, go in debt. Anything's going to go boom. This is it's story of everybody going full twist.
Watch out and take care. Ben, an MIT mathematics major, is accepted into Harvard, but cannot afford the $300,000 tuition. He applies for a scholarship that would cover the entire cost, but is informed that only one of the 76 applicants will get it. Despite having high grades and test scores, he faces fierce competition. He needs to write an essay and is told by the director that the scholarship will only go to whichever student dazzles him. Ben works at a men's clothing store with his best friend Miles and is promoted to assistant manager, which makes $8 an hour. He tells Miles about the essay and that he has no idea what to write about, because he hasn't done anything remarkable. Ben is frustrated because even though he has crushed exams, taken extracurriculars, and given up everything, the one thing stopping him...
Funny story, that was the guy who first donated the curry pasta 10 years ago, saying he had a 200-word essay due in 12 days.
From going to Harvard is money. They meet up at a bar with Cam to celebrate Ben's birthday. The three of them are trying to win a science competition by building a self-driving car. Back at MIT, a professor, Mickey Rose, is giving a lecture on nonlinear equations. He asks the class to explain Newton's method. Ben mentions that Newton actually stole the method from Joseph Raphson, who published the same method 50 years earlier. The professor is impressed and gives him a chance for extra credit, so he challenges Ben with the Monty Hall problem, which he solves successfully. As class ends, the professor checks Ben's most recent test result to see 97%. Ben, Miles, and Cam are at a gym playing basketball. He notices a girl he likes, Jill. She waves and he waves back, but turns out she's waving at someone behind him.
I fucking
Later
hate
that
the
day, as
Monty Hall
Ben
problem.
is studying, a fellow student comes up and asks to follow him. He's a bit confused but does so. He's brought to a room that has some students sitting at a blackjack table and Professor Rose is standing at a blackboard. He tells Ben to call him Mickey and invites him to join the MIT blackjack team. Ben is introduced to the team consisting of Kiana, Fisher, Choi, and Jill. They explain that blackjack is beatable and that they go to Las Vegas every weekend.
It's still 50-50! It's still 50-50! It still is!
And in holiday, and that a spot on their team has opened up, because a previous member got a job at Google. Ben is hesitant because he's afraid to step out of his comfort zone. Jill says, "Come on Ben, it'll be fun." They go back and forth, Ben coming up with excuses as to why he can't do it, and Mickey trying to convince him, but Ben ultimately declines. The next day Jill shows up at his job and says she's looking for a tie. Ben tries to help her pick one, but she's actually there to try to convince him further, saying that he should experience more things in life. Ben finally shows up at the blackjack club and starts learning the system. High cards have a value of -1, neutral cards have no value, and low cards...
Yeah, just a small parallel about this, okay? Okay. Two things. Overall, guys, and this is a movie, kid, and you guys don't give a fuck about my take. I'm sorry for disrupting your entertainment, but listen. Two problems with this, okay? At the casinos, the shoes are too big for this to make sense, okay? At the casinos, they have shoes, they stack the cards in the decks into big shoes, 10 stacks, sometimes more, depends where you go, okay? And basically, even if you do the math and you do the whole count and you go hard, the advantage you gain out of that shoe is very, very slim, right? And the way you would get money out of that, right, is by low betting on normal hands, and when the count is high, then you go big, right? Then you go big, and what happens then is that you think, hey man, if I'm at the casino, I can bet however I want. Incorrect. If the casino sees you and they can easily detect it, that you are doing that, they're just gonna kick you out, literally. Yeah, they do. Because
modern casinos have automatic shufflers now, so can't do it anymore.
Yeah, they do. But still, though, they'll literally kick you out of it. Literally.
System. High cards have a value of -1, neutral cards have no value, and low cards are +1. He practices counting cards and memorizes the words that the team has assigned to each high count. Later, at a bar, they explain the roles of every member of the team. Kiana, Choi, and Jill are the spotters.
Yes, you cannot think at a casino. You play the game the way it's meant to be played, and you don't. At
various blackjack tables, only betting the table minimum and keeping count. When one of the tables reach a hot count, the player has an edge over the dealer, so they signal Ben or Fisher, who are the big players, who then stumble over to the table like some drunk rich kid and bet big. When the deck cools down, the big player leaves the table. Ben shows up to a dodgy alleyway for a trial run. He goes inside an underground casino where his spotters are already sitting at tables. Choi signals him that the deck is hot and Ben sits down at the table. Choi then uses the word magazine in a sentence to inform Ben that the count is +17 and he starts making big bets. He's winning a lot and is exhilarated, smiling constantly, when suddenly a bag is thrown over his head and he's dragged into a back room. A deep voice keeps asking him, "What's the count?" He acts clueless but eventually gives in and tells them it's +18. Turns out this was a test whether he can keep the count under pressure and is officially welcomed to the team. The next day they fly to Las Vegas. They enter a hotel suite where Mickey gives each member a new identity and a disguise. He further instructs Ben to act like they don't know each other and always order water, tonic and lime, and appear a little drunk. At the Red Rock Casino, Kiana signals Ben. He looks to the right and sees Fisher and Troy at the next table. He sits down and exchanges $10,000 for chips, and after taking a sip of her drink, Kiana exclaims "too sweet," which indicates that the count is plus 16. Ben doubles down on 8s on his first hand, the dealer goes over 21 and Ben wins, profiting $4,000 already.
That's it.
On the next hand he gets a blackjack and wins another $3,000. He goes on playing at the casino on different tables, stacking chips along the way. Seeing Ben winning so much, Fisher stares in disbelief. Come morning, Troy signals it's time to leave and they head out. The next day Ben is woken up by Jill, who throws him his cut. She tells him he did good, came in quick.
The Giga Chad isn't putting 10k and winning 10k and making 10k profit. The real Giga Chad is doing 260k buy-ins and winning 2k. That's the real fucking Giga Chad.
Wasn't afraid to play big.
That's the Giga
got
Chad.
out when he was supposed to and made more money than Fisher. He tells her that he was pretty nervous at first, but after a while it felt easy. They are called for a team meeting. Fisher shows up drunk. Mickey is pissed, because on 3 occasions, Fisher played into a cold deck even when spotters let him know that. Mickey tells Ben he did good and to keep it up. Fisher utters, "beginner's luck," and denies that he played wrong, but Mickey puts him in his place. Ben is back at the dorm and stashes his cut from the weekend, $16,700 in the ceiling tiles. Suddenly Miles and Cam walk in and he pretends he's just jumping on the bed. Miles asks where he was this weekend and says he called like 15 times. Ben makes up a lie about helping a cousin move and says that he forgot his cell phone. All 3 decide to go to a bar for some drinks. Ben sees Jill at the counter and offers to buy her a beer. His 2 friends are stunned and keep staring at them. He goes to tell them to stop acting weird to not freak her out, but they say that they are probably more freaked out than she is. Ben and Jill are on a train. He asks her whether she came into the store to ask him to join the team because Mickey asked her to. She says that he's the smartest guy she knows and that's why he's on the team and that's why she went to the store. He tries to kiss her but she pulls back. He is embarrassed and starts apologizing, but she tells him to not worry about it and that she just doesn't want to complicate things because they work together. She says it's her stop, so she gets off the train. Over the coming weekends, the team is flown to Las Vegas Valley and Ben comes to enjoy.
Options. To stay or change. You had a 66% of picking the wrong door at the start, so instantly changing already increases their odds.
His luxurious life as a high roller, but there's still one thing he can't get off his mind. Every trip he makes more money than in 5 years at his old job. In Boston he is just Ben Campbell, but in Vegas he can be whoever he wants to be. It was too good to be true and felt like it was never going to end. The head of security, Cole Williams, has been monitoring the team and begins to focus on Ben, suspecting that he may be counting cards. Turns out he is also a card counter, but prefers to be on the other side of the hustle. For the first time, life was easy for Ben, nothing cost too much and nothing was out of reach. College parties with frat dudes were upgraded to something more interesting. Fisher becomes extremely jealous of Ben's success and one day, while drunk, sits down at Ben's table and starts.
Every movie makes card counters look like they're fucking like some brain altered genius cyborg. Once you learn it, it's just like reading normal words on a book or some shit. Except it's easier.
Williams is watching them on tape and notices that Kiana only bets table minimum and that Ben only appears after she gives him a signal. He goes to confront them, but Fisher has caused a commotion and they leave before Williams can get to them. At a bar, Mickey removes Fisher from the team. He informs the rest that the casino is changing their chips in 24 hours, which means that they need to exchange them for cash, which they can't do because of Fisher's antics.
Hey,
Ben
come
suggests
on!
they use the dancers to exchange the chips for them. Mickey calls him a genius. Later that day Jill invites Ben to her suite and they have a romantic night and make love. Ben's new secret life causes him to neglect his role in the science competition, which estranges him from his friends. He shows up late to a meeting with them and gives them the wrong part for their project. They are disappointed and tell him that he isn't as committed to the project as they are and decide to keep going without him. During the next trip to Las Vegas, he is emotionally distracted. He gets an unlucky outcome on a big hand. He lets his emotions get the better of him and fails to walk away from the table when signaled by Kiana. Jill steps in and tries to get him out, but fails. He ends up losing an extra $200,000. Mickey is furious and even when Ben apologizes, Saying that this is his first mistake and others try to back him up, Mickey leaves the team and says that Ben will have to pay the $200,000 he lost one way or another. Ben and the remaining team decide that they will continue to play blackjack without Mickey, who took a 50% cut, reasoning that they don't even need him. Jill is against the idea, reminding Ben that he only did this to pay for Harvard, but even though he had made enough money, he now wants to keep going.
Hey, Mr.
They go back to the
Mr.
tables and are winning, but Mickey is lurking in the shadows and tips off security. Williams takes Ben to a back room and beats him up while explaining that all casinos will soon have face recognition software, so his days were numbered anyway. Ben is also told that Williams and Mickey go way back. He used to chase and beat him up too, which is why Mickey doesn't play himself anymore. Ben goes back to MIT and reads a letter saying that he is ineligible for graduation because one of his courses, taught by an associate of Mickey's, is marked as incomplete. He goes inside and finds his dorm room trashed. The money he's been stashing away is missing. He has lost everything. He visits Jill and says he doesn't want to lose her too, and apologizes for his actions back in Vegas. Ken and Miles manage to win the robotics competition even without Ben, who is there watching.
Rookie mistake there. He went back to the girl, except he says that he's broke. So now he needs to realize that he truly lost everything.
He apologizes to Miles for letting him down and explains everything he's been up to, and they make up. Ben goes to see Mickey and persuades him to make a final trip to Vegas before the casinos install biometric software, but this time they will all use disguises and Mickey will be the second big player to make a big return. They're in a casino, making big bets, stacking chips and enjoying themselves. They manage to profit $640,000 before Williams shows up. Jill signals them and they scramble, throwing chips in a bag.
The only worse thing than chasing losses in Gamba is chasing bitches.
And taking off. A chase ensues. They run around slot machines and enter the staff area, where Mickey convinces Ben to throw him the chips and says they should separate. Mickey manages to get out and hops into a limo. He's ecstatic, thinking he got away with all of the money, but as he opens the bag, he realizes that the chips are fake. Ben switched the real chips with fake ones while they were running. Turns out that Williams has always held a grudge against Mickey, because the last time he saw him he got away with massive gains. So he made a deal with Ben to lure Mickey back to Vegas to catch him. In turn, Ben would be allowed to keep whatever they make that day, but when Ben and Jill exit the casino, Williams walks up and explains that he needs the money for retirement, and Ben, being as intelligent as he is, will figure out a way to succeed, so he takes the bag at gunpoint.
Half and half?
Turns out that Ben's longtime friends are also pretty good at card counting, and the 6-person team makes a lot of money despite Williams' robbery. As Ben is recounting this story to the scholarship director, he looks pretty damn dazzled. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more.
Yeah, because the guy is like some fucking Harvard nerd Andy. He's not dazzled by the story. He's dazzled because he's getting a fat boner when he calls the police and fucking snitches on him, dude. He's gonna get a super self-righteous, hardcore bonerino, dude. You know that's how it is. Don't be worried about it. What? It's not illegal. If they kick you out until you can't come anymore, can't do it.
Accidentally stood up too fast and tangled my balls.
Technically it is.
It's 1:20 AM in Australia and I need to get an Uber to the hospital. Wish me luck.
Does this work for getting bitches? Just asking for a friend, huh?
It's private business, yeah. And also, the thing you need to understand is that
In a near
you know, people will say, "Oh, dude, the money runs everything. Money runs that." You know,
distant
how do you think it is with the casinos? You know,